whatever we're doing now is not more Machadash Chidushim. It's all included in what the Rebbe put into us. In the Rebbe's Torah, in the Rebbe's Anhoge, he put in all the inyonim that happen now is all a hemshech to what he did. It's like the Rebbe started the fire, and the fire is continuing. So I feel it from a Balabatish perspective. Balabatish, this has nothing to do with deep inyonim chassidus. It's all the Rebbe. So the Rebbe is doing it now. It's all what he did then till Gimmel Tammuz is he responsible for what he's doing now. Filo Balabatish.
I'm Yossi Kamen. Welcome to Among Chassidim by Der Herr, an ongoing Farbrengen about life as a chassid, our vibrant connection with the Rebbe, and inspired living shaped by the way he teaches us each and every day. Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Shapiro. How are you?
Baruch Hashem, Aleichem Shalom, Geleib der Rebbe. Thank God.
Okay, I appreciate you making the time to have this conversation. And I want to say that generally, we've done a few episodes of Among Chassidim podcast, and usually I like to do it a little bit free-flowing and see where it goes. Although today we are going, a little more focused. And the reason is that this is the podcast that we are posting the podcasts on Sundays, and this is the one that will come out on Sunday, Gimmel Tammuz. And B'meila, Gimmel Tammuz is a day where everyone is looking to connect to the Rebbe and to do the proper thing. So I believe that it might be important to address that and to be focused. And I myself have heard you on Gimmel Tammuz speak before, at least once or maybe more than once. So and the question kind of is, many people have different ways they can they talk about or they think about the day of Gimmel Tammuz. Someone that we spoke to recently called it, it's a hard day, and he looks to be with other chassidim on that day. We also know all the things that the Rebbe spoke about in the Sichos about Yud Shvat, and that can apply. But I'm not sure. I think every year people are trying to figure it out. So maybe you can help with this.
Well, like you said, not everybody has the same feeling and not everyone has the same approach. I could just tell you what I feel. That the truth is they're both important. First of all, important is to remember what we don't have, not chas v'sholem to make us sad, but to know what the Rebbe is and what we had, and then we could also say that even though begashmis we don't have it, we still have it, and then we continue the same way it was before. But the first thing is to know what we had. And the reason why there's a difference before Gimmel Tammuz and after Gimmel Tammuz, and before Gimmel Tammuz we had the Rebbe here begashmis, and after Gimmel Tammuz we know he's here, but we don't see him with our physical eyes, we don't hear him with our physical ears, etc., etc. And that's very important to know that we're missing that. Why are we missing that? Some people would say, well, if we know, we always say the Rebbe is still here, like the Rebbe spoke after Yuchvat, the Rebbe is still here with us. But nevertheless, mitzidenu, from the Rebbe's side, Avad, the Rebbe is all the hashpos, everything before. Mitzidenu, we are Gashmizdike people. We're not great Ruchnizdike people. To us, Gashmi is Tefes Markim. Gashmi is something. And we are Gashmi people, we feel with Gashmias and we understand with Gashmias. So therefore, if we see the Rebbe Begashmias, it's more tangible to us. Even though Mitzad the Rebbe, he's towards us and with us and Mashpia the same way without him being here. The famous story with the Koshin Tzemagid, the Koshin Tzemagid, they say a story that before he passed away, the later years, he told his son, you should know, I worked on myself so much that I'm no more goof. My goof is not really a goof, Gashmi. So his son says to him, Tate, farvos as ich tap dir feel ich goof. Why, if I'm touching you, I feel body? I feel your body? What do you mean you have no body? So he says, your problem is, I do touch me, you're touching with body. It's your body that's feeling it, so you feel body. So it's a problem. But Lepel, that's how we are. We can't change it. We are Gashmaziki people. when we're able to hear the Rebbe and see the Rebbe, it, even begashmis, we were able to feel what Elokus is. What's the Rebbe? The Rebbe is Ish Elokim, like it says by Moshe Rabbeinu. Tefillah l'Moshe Ish Elokim. V'zei sabrocha sheberach Moshe Ish Elokim. What does Ish Elokim mean? A godly man. What does a godly man mean? So the Medrash says, "Mechetzi l'mayla mechetzi l'mata ish, mechetzi l'mayla l'kim." That means that he's ish and elikim. He has godliness by him. Elokus is begilui. And when you stood in front of the Rebbe and you saw him, you were able to feel it, even with your goof, even with your nefesh habamis. You felt. I once heard Farbrengens of Avram Paris. He was 77. He came. He didn't come too often. He was very mekushet the Rebbe. He was top. The Rebbe referred to him once by Farbrengens. Avram Paris, given a emes chsidische tomim. That's what happens. He was a real chsidische tomim. So I once heard him Farbrengens. He said like this: we always talk about Ava v'Yira. You have to have Avas Hashem, Yira. You have to have Yira Shemayim, fear of Hashem. So he said, is there any way to describe the Gashmi that the person has Yiras Hashem? It's a feeling in the heart. Any Gashmi. So he says, I'll tell you, yes, there is. Imagine you're standing in the middle of Farbrengens, and the Rebbe calls you over for some reason. And you walk over, and you could imagine how people felt. You would push it, shake. What are you afraid of? He's not going to hurt you. He's not going to do anything to you. He's a fine man. He's not going to shake. What are you afraid of? You're afraid, begashmias, knowing that this is Gili Lakus. But you feel it. And that's why you walk over. That's why you would shake. When you went into Yechidus, that's how you felt. When you went into Yechidus Begashmias, your body felt you're going into the Kedesh HaKadoshim. Always Bachsidim, they talk, the Rebbe's room is Kedesh HaKadoshim, the famous the Hatomim, where it describes the whole story that he asked his father what's the end of going into Yechidus. So he told him, we used to have a Beis HaMikdash, and there was Kedesh HaKadoshim. Now we don't have a Beis HaMikdash. The Rebbe's room is Kedesh HaKadoshim. When the Rebbe Alein is the Oren, but it's the Kedesh HaKadoshim. So you walked in, you felt it. It wasn't the fantasies. You felt it, and therefore begashmias you would shake. I remember my own Yechidus. At one time, I went in and begashmias, my foot was shaking and was banging on the floor, made noise. And I felt so uncomfortable standing in front of the Rebbe, banging, tuck, 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 banging. I bent down, took my hand, put it on my knee to stop it. It didn't work. What is the story? The story there is, you push it, we're able to see with your Guf Gashmi. In Seichel, we know that it was there in Sido, but the Gashmi is, and we relate more to Gashmis. And even the Malach Chassidim also would relate more to Gashmis than to Ruchnis, because we're human beings. It's no one's fault. It's David's fault that he made us Gashmis people who are Gashmis we relate to. So we have to think of that. So when it comes to Gimmel Tammuz, I tell people, because there's always differences of opinion. This guy says, how could you say that you feel bad that it's a day of, the word sadness is always bad, but it's a day that's very sincere and very serious. And no, we have to be just as happy as before, because the Rebbe, it's true. But the first thing is, if we know what we had Begashms before, we were able to hear the Rebbe. When you heard the Rebbe, you were able to stand there, and we could describe standing by Farbrengens, you felt like standing in Gan Eden. But you felt it. You felt it. You felt in a different madrege. So you felt. So when you heard the Rebbe's voice, well, it says Benegei Rebbe, it says Benegei Maimer, but the truth is, by every word that the Rebbe says, is Shechina Bedaberes Mitach Greinei. And even in Hasbore, there's a simple pshat. I mean, Shechina Bedaberes Mitach Greinei means that when Moshe Rabbeinu spoke, the voice sounded, it's not Moshe's voice. It's like a dibuk inside him that's talking. That means Moshe Rabbeinu, his Metzias, his Ish Elokim. So when he spoke, this is Elokus being this Gala. By the Rebbe, you would feel it. And that, because we're Gashmizik people, we don't feel it. So that's one thing that we have to feel on Gimmel Tammuz. This is a day that the Gashmias, we don't see the Rebbe. And so we have to think about it, what it meant, Begashmias. Then we have to know that Liyazav Tzeimarisa, and you learn the Sichas of the Rebbe from Tafshin Yud, when he gave the Friedrich Rebbe, that he's still with us and is Mashpia with us. And the truth is, you could even feel it. You have to work on it harder. It's harder. You can feel it, and you have to feel that way. And you have to still say Ashtreinu Matei Cholkeinu, and the Rebbe is Mashpias, and we see it. I wouldn't say begashmis, but we see with all the things that are happening with not only the meifsim that the Rebbe does when you go to the Eil, which is maybe more even than the meifsim he did till Gimmel Tammuz, but even not only that, but you could feel to a certain degree, but lapel not. But we have to work on ourselves to feel it and to know that it's still the same. Even though when it comes to halacha lemaise, you have to behave differently. No, what the Rebbe said Tov Shiyud. The Rebbe kept on saying Tov Shiyud. We all know that the Rebbe is mitus and the Rebbe is still with us. All the inyanim, he said. Came Pesach to the Seder, the Rebbe made Hasebe. Till then, he didn't make Hasebe because in front of the Rebbe, you don't make Hasebe. So someone asked the Rebbe, you just kept saying he's still here. So the Rebbe said, when it comes to halacha lemaise, you have to go push it in the Gashma Zikya halacha, and Gashma halacha, the Rebbe is not here. So we have to take that in consideration. We have to work both sides. It's a little bit hard to work both sides, but it says in Tanya from the Zohar, "Chedvat kiya b'liboy mesitrado, pchiyat kiya b'liboy mesitrado." I don't mean chiyah kipshut. It means that chedva simcha, joy, should be on one side of your heart, and the lashon there is crying is another side. But there it talks about cheshbon nefesh. I don't mean crying now, but to feel the seriousness of what the Rebbe was when he was here Gashmis, when you could see him. You have to feel that on one side, and at the same time, you have to feel that it's all there, even though we don't really feel it. But we have to juggle between the two. I don't know if we could call it Rotzav Yeshuv or whatever expressions you want to use, but that's what Gimmel Tammuz is. It has both things. And also, in order to really feel that it's the Rebbe still there, you got to know what it meant that the Rebbe was there. If you don't know what meant the Rebbe is there, you don't know what to say. Well, he's still here. Still what? So you got to be misbeinen on what the Rebbe was and how the Rebbe was to us and what he meant to us. And from a balabatish point of view, even from the Gashmizik point of view, there was a different world, different life. Then, if you know that, you try to be mamshechet now. And if you're misbeinen and you work on it, you're able to feel it.
Okay, very well explained. And I have a few. There's two ways where we can take this.
You can
So
take them both.
okay, good. So maybe we'll do both. My first question is
maybe I'll regret what I said. Okay.
My first shaila is that I'm thinking about myself, thinking through all the Gimmel Tammuz, all the times that happened every year in the past many years, from when I was a bacher till now, and I feel like this might, I'm not sure if this is accurate because I'm portraying it in others, but I felt like the first part, the part that we realized that we're lacking something, was very strong. You felt that b'chlal, and then you felt that, especially on Gimmel Tammuz, it was kind of like in the air, like you can mamish feel it. And today there are many. First of all, we're talking about over 30 years. Second of all, we're talking about a whole new crowd and people that grew up after Gimmel Tammuz or were born after Gimmel Tammuz, etc. And is it an aveda that you're supposed to work on to have that feeling of a benkenish, a gaguyim, a yearning? Is that an aveda? Is that something that to work on? That's one. That's one part of what I wanted to ask you. Maybe I'll stop talking and hear what you have to say.
Oh, definitely is an Aveda. Definitely something that we have to stress. We have to work on it. And even though those that were not there by Farbrengens, they were born after Gimmel Tammuz, but they have to find out. That's one of the milos of the videos. That's, by the way, when you see it, gives you an understanding, a dimion of what it was. It doesn't chas v'sholem chas to replace anything, but it gives you a dimion. Like the Rebbe said, Tov Yud, that you should have a picture of the Rebbe, and you should look at it and misban lesman be misbeinen in your mind. How was it when you went into Yechidus, and how was it when you were by a Farbrengen? And then the Rebbe said that even if those that were not there could also be misbeinen, and one of the ways is bepashtas if you hear from others. When it says it's not because the altars are the best of the night with the young people. It's not that the great tzitkas of this kingdom. Elamai Begashmi is they were there and they were able to describe it. And if you describe it, you're able to feel it. We have a person here in Shubayas, about Shuva. So he's about Shuva many years already. But he never was by the Rebbe. So once I was mentioning it, I was trying to describe how it was by the Rebbe. And then I said, looks like I'm making you jealous. And then they said, you know what? Yeah, I'm trying to make you jealous. Yes, be jealous. But I said, it's a shame that those that weren't there. So he turns around to me, this young man says to me, after healing all the Farbrengens, I said, we're talking, I talk a lot about the Rebbe and describe it, and I try to describe it in details. And he says to me, I feel as if it was by Farbrengen. Yes, I know so much about it. So when you see the videos about it, it makes it even more at or Gashmi. But so that's the way to do it. And you should stress it. It's not, some people put a stress on that only or very much. So all it brings out that you have a bad feeling and you feel what you're missing, which you are, but it stresses too much. So you got to do it. Is it an Aveda? It's an Aveda. And it's not easy, but you got to work on it. Like I said, same thing I said before, that in order to be able to feel that the Rebbe is with us now, we have to have an understanding of the Rebbe. Now, understanding what the Rebbe means two things. Understanding what the Rebbe is. That we needed before also. Besides looking at the Rebbe, seeing and hearing his voice and seeing his holy face, we had to understand that you have to learn Chassidus, learn the Sikhs to know what the meaning of a Rebbe is. And that's the first thing you have to do. Push it to understand what the meaning of a Rebbe, what's the meaning of a Neshama Klolis. I don't know if there'll be time we could get into it. Hasboris, what is Taich and the Rebbe's and Neshama Klolis, all other things when the Geya Rebbe. So that you have to be misbeinen. That's from the intellectual, philosophical part. But then you also have to have the Gashmistic part, which before you didn't have to work on it. You were there. Someone had a gagoim to the Rebbe, wasn't there for a while. So in some, if you're in New York, you just today I'm going to come down Mincha. I'm talking about not Bochum, or have to be there anyway. I'm going to come down Mincha with the Rebbe's minyan. If you're out of town, you know what? For this coming Shabbos, I'm going to take a flight and go from Miami to New York. It is easy. It's not a big aveda to have that feeling. Now it's hard. Now you go to the Eil. It's the closest you could get, true, but it's still in the Eil. You don't see the Rebbe, so you have to work on that to know what it was before Gimmel Tammuz.
You mentioned something interesting that before Gimmel Tammuz, you also had to work on or come to an understanding of was is a Rebbe.
100%.
So I want to ask you, what did that mean for you? Like when you were say, was the chinuch that you got from home, or was coming to the Rebbe? What was it like for you?
Well, it's for sure from connected to both, connected to the from home. If you come from a Chassidish home, that's the whole atmosphere of the home. And then when you go to yeshiva and you have the Chanchim, Mashpiyim, Rabbeim, Rosh Yeshivas, I mean, that's all part of the job, part of what they're
I'm
doing.
asking you personally. What
Yeah, that's
happened?
well, it was from home, and then a lot we got from Rabbi Leibel, that I have to say.
Where
That
you learned in Bedford?
I first learned in Bedford. We were young boys when we were in Bedford. I came to actually to New York in Tovshin Chof, and I went to Bedford. Tovshin Chof Gimmel Tammuz. That's when we went to 770, transferred to learn in 770. Used Farbrengens with us a lot, especially the Pagres. He could have Farbrengens the Kislev starting 8 o'clock in the evening or 7 o'clock till 7 o'clock in the morning, and the whole time talking most of the time. And Haktarain, and he brought into the what a Rebbe is, and then he did a big chel. The pale our class was actually we were known as his talmidim because we were connected to him very much. So what he did was he took, let's call American boys, and made them into Chassidish Eden. And he, with his Farbrengen, he wasn't the mashpia type that actually spoke to each individual bocher and gave him adroche. That's not his general Farbrengens and general Chassidus and everything instilled in the Indian to understand what the Rebbe is. That's it too. That's what he did. And also not only him, he was more with seichel, with philosophy, with understanding. Then you had the Rebbe David Raskin, and you had other Chassidish Eden who were the Dugma Chaya. So that instilled in us this, and they would also speak and Farbrengen. So it comes from both. I even took a lot from, even though I was very young, but I took a lot from my Zayde, my mother's father, who was the Rebbe's Melamed, and his bittul to the Rebbe was outstanding. You can't imagine. And I was, surprised. The Rebbe's this Talmud. He
Rebbe
ever
stood
wrote,
up for him when he came
the
to
Rebbe
into
stood
the
up
beit.
for when you got Yechidus, when they wouldn't sit down. He sat down the second time because he couldn't stand. He was paralyzed. But the first time he wouldn't sit down, the Rebbe said, if you're not sitting, I'm not going to sit. So just to see his Yachas to the Rebbe and talking to him, that instilled it. Talking about me personally into the feeling of what a Rebbe is. But they need the hasbara. You see, some people just the Rebbe. It's very. I'm only this deeper because come from Netzem Nefesh. It's tmimis Rebbe. But we're Chassid Chabad. Chabad is not enough. That tmimis and this. You have to have that for sure. But in addition to that, we have to understand, and that
Some people say that they came to the Rebbe for the first time, and then that was it.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good. But then after that, that's the nase before the nishma.
Yeah.
That has to be, and that's very good. If that's the first thing, the Rebbe had such a shpo on me that that's it. I was hooked up on it, and then that's it. But then you have to sit down and understand what this is all about. It's same tzadikim daimim lebeirom, the Medrash says. Which, by the way, it's a Medrash. That some Farshim say there's no such Medrash. And the Rebbe has a order with many Maramakemus where this is written in the Medrash. But by the Abish, they would say the same thing. There is the Munah Pshuta. You have to have him, and the best thing is the guy feels all of a sudden he starts feeling it's like he feels close to the Eibishter. That's fine, but that's not enough. Chabad teaches that there has to be you say this Abuda Chochmas Leida Sheyesh Motzerishin. That you have to understand, you have to know it's not lahamin. Lahamin in Sefer HaMitzvahs it says lahamin, and the same thing you should believe. Here it says to know, and it's not a stira. The Rebbe quotes both. It's not a stira. Why? Because they need both. You need the lahamin. You need to know Ibn Gigem that Eibish, and that's it. But then, if you don't understand, I don't want to get into Hasbaras here. This is not a philosophical discussion. But if you don't understand, what is a pshat? I don't understand. I don't understand means my seichel disagrees. That's right. I don't see how this is so. I don't see. Prove it to me. I don't. So my seichel is fighting it. So imagine you believe in the Eibush, you have everything. Every part of you is bottled to the Eibush, except the most important part of you, your brain. Your brain doesn't accept it. He just give up. He says, "I'm overlooking the fact that I'm fighting you, and I nevertheless, you're winning." That can't be. You have to have the understanding. So the same thing with the Rebbe. You have to have understanding. It's very good, and there's some people which that's all there is. The Rebbe, and that's it. But you have to learn about it and think about it and hear about it. But that was always. Even that was easier when the Rebbe was here with Gashmias. So it was shouldn't Giluyim that made you see when you sat by Farbrengens and you heard the Rebbe speak, and maybe the Kinyonim, that itself brought out in you to understanding. I remember standing. I give me an example. I don't know why I'm picking this example. The example of when the Rebbe said the Hadin, the first Hadin on the Rambam. I wasn't by Farbrengens. I was here. We had a hookup. It was mamish blew your mind. To understand what the Rebbe is was much easier than look. No human being in the world was able to say it. It just shows this is a person that's a Shaish Alikim. 2 days ago, no, today's Wednesday, Sunday, there was somebody they made a siyum on Masechta Shabbos, not in Shad Ezer, which is a Svardish shul. And I came there and I spoke. What I speak, everything I say is only for the Rebbe. Even if I don't mention it, the Gemara says that Rebbe Lozer didn't have to say b'shem the Rebbe because hakol yedim, whatever. So I
The Rebbe said once, "Alt was ich sage is other von schwer, other von tat."
yeah, yeah. So and he doesn't have to repeat it every time. So I didn't say, but it was obvious from the Rebbe. And the guy who made the siyum, he's a Swedish guy, but they're finding a man. So he walks. The next day in the morning, he tells me, "All you said is from the Rebbe, right?" I'm sure he took it from Shemayim. How else could you say such a thing? It took it from Shemayim. There's only someone who comes from Gan Eden, who's in Gan Eden, could say such biurim, which has both extremes. It's very gishmak, high biurim, and very down to earth. And so when you see the Rebbe and you hear it, so you get talk at that part of you when you learn a sikha and you see you get Nispal also. But I'm just saying then it was but easier. But nevertheless you had to have Mizbein. Now Avade. Now you have to have Mizbein and another prat. There's two Isboninus you have to have. The Isboninus of what a Rebbe is with all Inyonim Vichsidis the Masbir. And at the same time, the Isboninus that even though he's not here, Beguf Gashmi that we could see, he's still here. And he's still Mashpia. And we have to have Mizbein and all the kashas that people have. How could you say that he's here? I'll give you an example. This is already more a nigla. I don't know. This is Meret Chemish mentioned. A nigla.
You could say whatever you want, Rabbi Schapiro.
If you want, you can cut it out. That's a show. Saying no, whatever you do. I was standing. It was a few. We came back after the week of Gimmel Tammuz. Came back standing outside the yeshiva outside.
You're saying Gimmel Tammuz Tafshin Adal. You came back to
Miami. Came back a week later, so maybe another few days, and a guy, the car drives by, sees me, stops. There was a Rov here. One of the Rabbanim he stops, says, "Oh, good, I see you. I want to ask you a question. What's going to be with all the shluchim now?" And how the feeling was, people didn't know. Everyone was confused. What's going to be? And he says, "Al pi halacha." Like this, till now we know shluchim shlodim k'meisi. So, the shliach has to be here. The Mashaleach has to be here. Now that the Mashaleach is not here, and the words that they use, I'm just using it because halacha terms, even though I wouldn't use these words in the Rebbe, but the din is Meisa Mashaleach, but La Shlichus. So how are these people shluchim all now? It's a kasha. And people ask that kasha. Sincerely, some people criticize them, the Rettenshah, a person, a serious person who knows what Lubavitch is, and he says, how do you explain that? So I don't know what they hakt rein in my kop. So I told him, I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how it works. There's a din like this. It says that there's no more smicha. The real smicha that used to be in the time of the Senate, there's no more smicha, but la smicha. And bevela, we can't pass dinim. So that's why the best can't pass dinim. Knos, a certain dinim we can't pass. What about dinim ominous? There's still best and could pass monetary disputes. This they could pass based on what? If there's no smicha. So the Gemara said for that anan shlichusayu the Sanhedrin or something like that. We are shluchim of those. The best now are shluchim of the rich and bemela since shluchish lodim kamei, so they have the right. But they only made it lagab a certain dinim moment, not lagab everything else. The question is, how could they be shluchim? How could the best not be shluchim when those people from the Sanhedrin 2,000 years ago are not around anymore? So how are you shluchim now? So I told him what the pshat is. The Gemara says in Heiris that tzibur leimes. The tzibur from now is not a new tzibur. Different. The people are different, but the tzibur is an entity for itself. So the same tzibur from then. Now the Sanhedrin were tzibur. That's the tzibur represents with tzibur. Leimes. So they're still around. So what we do now, we're shluchim of those Sanhedrin that were then because they are tzibur. So I said that's the pshat. You understand? I said the Rebbe is tzibur. Rashi says in Parsha Chukas, Rashi says that Meisha hu Yisrael v'Yisrael l'Meisha nosi malamit nosi ador kol ador. So the nosi ador is the door, is the tzibur. Is tzibur leimes. There's no in halacha. So the shlichus is just as good of a shlichus as then. The shluchim are the same. It's hasbara. Somebody can start dingen saying this is not a good hasbara, but you need a hasbara, so you have to think about it. Now the best thing is, in addition to this, that you have an ongenommen nesach. It's clear, like day that the Rebbe is with us and everything true. But if you have a hasbara, your seichel is maskim. So you have to hasbara al panikli, you have hasbara al pichsidis, the way in the other generations that came into another guv gashmi, one Rebbe to the other. And now, since it's so close to Mashiach, it doesn't have to be it still, but that Nakuda is still there. But I'm trying to say that this needs to be done to be Mizbeinen. What is the Rebbe? And then the Prat, how's this Rebbe, the Inyan of Rebbe work? Now, if someone
So
has no questions and doesn't need an explanation, it's very good. Because I don't want to be mayor or kashas.
yeah, so the
If somebody,
hezbollah that you gave to the Rosh Yeshiva,
yeah,
Apinigla, is basically an explanation that the Dair is defined by the Rebbe. That the Rebbe is the Nasi Hadair. So that's the
true.
definition of the Dair. So
Okay,
I'm saying it's the same. It's the same hasbara. It's the same
right.
explanation.
And therefore, it's and that day, since he's a tzibur, and he's continuing. But Hasbara would be because Tzibur lay mess. It's not in Halacha. It's not only lay mess. We say in Ruchnius, he's still here. He's still Beruchnius. All good Sachen. We wanted to know Bepeil Begashmias. He asked me this shaila. He said, "I have a Halacha shaila," and he didn't mean to chepazach. Halacha shaila. How does the shluch on kemei say when there's no meshaleach Begashmias? And I told him by a Rebbe there is no such thing. Just like by the Sanhedrin, it says because it's Tzibur. The Rebbe is Tzibur. So that's but there's all kinds of asboras that there is, and you have to think about it, and to it's not easy, but it's definitely there. So getting back to what we spoke before, the beginning and the end, there's what was before, and the Frierdiker Rebbe has a lotion. That's bechlal things that the over malama des osi. You can't live with over. The mamol, no the chassidim used to teach.
Amalek.
Okay, timche zecher amol, like can't live with Amol, what used to be like that. So then forget about Amol. You can't forget about Amol either. So the Frierdiker Rebbe used the Lashon. However, Malamed es osid. It teach what so normally teaches you behavior. Like there's a letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe where he writes to the schools that they should teach history, Jewish history, Divrei Yisrael, and he gives the reason why. Because when you learn Divrei Yisrael, you learn the Mesiras Nefesh of Yidden had all these generations. So it'll be Me'er you to have Mesiras Nefesh. That's Poshe Pshat. The Ovar gives you a Kayach for Osid. But in this case, it's more than that. You have to know the Ovar. We're saying that there is no Ovar. All that is now too. What's all that? So you got to know. That's where you got to listen to people who were there. And not because the people who are there are nicer than you or better than you. People that lived in the Chovs by the Rebbe are not bigger tzaddikim. You think there's Bochrim and Gelait now, greater tzaddikim, greater Chassidish and Gelait, and no more. But they Poshe Begashmi is they weren't there. So you have to hear from somebody to give you a tzir. That's why, again, the mile of the pictures, but the mile of the videos is avad. It gives you a tzir. And you still don't have a tzir, because I see from people who constantly watch videos, and they still ask me such questions. When they gave what? I said, you didn't see it there? You just on the video. It's not this. It's not the same. So that's what has to go through the mind of a person. Both studying.
There's a Sikha the Fidik Rebbe about this concept, about the Asher Ishalesh Kacheka, that he writes that when the Fidik Rebbe was a child, he saw Chassidim of the Rebbe Marash describing the Rebbe Marash singing Rosh Hashanah, Asher Ishalesh Kacheka,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden they all got up and started singing the niggin. And the Fidik Rebbe writes, in the way the Fidik Rebbe writes, with very explanatory and very detailed, how you could pasha feel like you're standing by the Rebbe Marash, like at that moment. I think that's kind of that. I mean, the whole Vigada to Levincha, the whole Seder is basically Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim and remembering it, but the Alter Rebbe,
you have to live it.
Yetzias Mitzrayim is Hayei Mamish, right? It's every single day it's happening. The Skarim V'Nasim, but remembering it in order for it to happen today.
Not only in order. It is nasiv when you have to remember it in such a way that's nasiv. Friedrich Rebbe has the story with the guy who was a soldier in the army, and he was summoned once to the Tsar, and was trying to describe. They asked him, "How did it feel?" So he's trying to describe every detail, how you got ready to go into the Tsar, and then finally standing in front of the door. I don't remember the details, but describing and with such emotion. Finally, when it gets to the point that now he's ready to go in, he fainted when he told it over, because he really relived it. But that's yourself. See, I was there, and I'm reliving what it is. We're talking here about people who were not there. Those that were there must do that too. They have to start thinking and talking. That's why sometimes by Farbrengens, I try to talk. Someone asked me, why are you going to the details? I'm trying to not talk to them. I'm trying to bring it back into my mind. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, it depends. So to relive again, you should feel that way. Yeah, that's what it is. So that's what you got to do now.
Mm-hmm. But you're saying so. You're saying the fact of the matter is that okay. I think I have the balance over here. Is someone supposed to? Let's say, I mean, there's a mechanech children today. I have my own children, and now it's already cliche. So
the fathers already weren't there.
So it's I mean, I was born, but so I think the only way I'm saying this just highlights the importance of every individual really taking this seriously as an aveda that needs to be done, because we know the reality that the Rebbe is here. So, but are we gonna? You can not be involved and let it fly by without you realizing, because it's not the way it was. They could just be there. So I think this is I think Gimmel Tammuz is for sure the day that we have to make sure that we're there, that we're actually that we are alive, so we can continue all of this.
It has to be a klesheni, but a klesheni that's mavashal. The word on the pill parisher. That Tzedek sends somebody to the pill or whatever to ask him. So he said about erdach ner klesheni. So he said about, I think that was a losh, maybe something similar about a klesheni was a mavashal. In other words, you could be a klesheni, but it's so strong that so klesheni is not. But you have to live it. If you live it, then when you give over, because certainly children chapuv, if it's mitanemes or it's just lip service, it's miret. So in order for the children to accept it, they have to see that, they have to feel. They don't even realize it, but they feel that you're living it. The mele they live it too. In another target.
So the klisheni is technically it's a klisheni, but
Yeah,
we're not a
yeah,
klisheni.
not a cliche.
I,
Yeah,
I I'll give a full disclaimer. I don't consider myself a klisheni, but I mean maybe sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But I'm addressing this issue
yeah.
for many. I
You,
guess the aved is even if you're technically klisheni, but you're
it
not.
could be in such a way, right? Right, right.
Hmm. Fine. Fine. So this is very important. So maybe going back to the Friedrich Rebbe Ashley Ishalesh Kachaka, maybe something that we can do in this conversation is live with the Rebbe and relive with the Rebbe through hearing from you. So maybe I'll focus. Maybe let's focus a little bit on that a little bit. Um, so I understand that. I understand you grew up in. I'm not sure where you were born, but you grew up in Cleveland, right? Is
Yes,
that
I was born in France
after the war?
right after the war. Yeah, after when my parents they escaped Russia together with all those people, Chassidim who escaped Russia and Tov Zion came to France. First they were in Germany in the DP camps, and they came to France. And I was born mamish the first week that he came there, and I was Cleveland. But from my bar mitzvah on, I I went to learn to New York. So I came El Tov Shirchov after my bar mitzvah, and that's where I stayed already. Till then, I also was by the Rebbe. So if you want to know my personal history, I mean, just to think, I don't know, my personal history is not so negaya, but it just
I'm
when
interested in knowing, so I don't know about
okay,
anyone else.
other
But
no
you're
people.
talking,
I'm interested in knowing from other people too. Just here, it's very interesting. I read
yeah,
sometimes these
yeah.
articles,
I
especially
enjoy
in the
this.
Deher, when I read these articles of the interview with people and they tell stories of their own. I like it. It has ashpoe because it's more when it's personal. You have more shaykhs to it.
Hundred
So
percent.
we came to America in Tofshin Yud Gimel, Elul Tofshin Yud Gimel. Went to Yechidus. I was a little boy. I was 6 years old. That was my first time I was by the Rebbe. In Yechidus with my family, my parents, brother, sister. Elul Tofshin Yud Gimel. I remember, and I'm usually embarrassed to say this over, but I have to say the truth. You have to be honest. The Rebbe asked me, and I remember like today because I regret what happened. I regret so much. He asked me if I know how to say Shema. I said yes. I was 6 years old, and then the Rebbe says, "No, let's hear." And I was too shy, and I didn't say. We heard later that the same night, another family that came from Europe, from Russia, to America, went to Yechidus with children. That the Rebbe asked him, a kid, to say Shema, and he said, and the Rebbe gave him a silver dollar. I felt so bad that I didn't. But a kid is a kid. The Chlal not always did I have mazel when the Rebbe, as young, when the Rebbe spoke. The second time I was Tovshin Yud Chai, my father took me for. My father used to go every year from Cleveland for Yud Shvat, for Yud Bistamas, and Simchas Torah to the Rebbe.
What were you doing in Cleveland? Why was he in Cleveland?
Cleveland because the joint who took the refugees out brought them and they supported them. So they divided families in different cities, and we're not going to put everyone in New York. Some people they sent to Philadelphia, some people sent to Detroit, some people sent to Cleveland. We were on the Cheshbon sent to Cleveland. So they sent us to Cleveland, and the Rebbe said, "Tak, we should go." And if we wouldn't go to Cleveland, they wouldn't support us. They had their quota, whatever they had. So we were in Cleveland. But from there, my father was a sheikh there, and he was from the Choshev Rabbanim in Shtot. But so for Simchas Torah, Tavshin Chai took me to the Rebbe, took him with him. So I was
So
still young then.
how old are you in Tafshachai?
My bar mitzvah is I was born Tavshin Zion, and this I was 11 years old. So we came there, and I was there with Farbrengen, and it was Hishana Rabbah. The Rebbe would give lekach Hishana Rabbah to those people who didn't get Erev Yom Kippur. Every year like it. Years later, he would give, even for the locals, he used to give throughout the whole week of Aseret Mitzvah, and for the Orchim, not only Hishana Rabbah, but all of Sukkot. But then most of the years it was, he gave Erev Yom Kippur to those that came, and those that weren't there got the Hishana Rabbah. So still a big line. A lot of people just came for Simchas Torah. Not like the years later. Standing in line, there was a long line of people there. And we all know that by these types, you can't stop and talk to the Rebbe and spend time when there's hundreds of people waiting in line. I walked over with my father. The first thing the Rebbe turned around to me. He said, "Was hast du gelernt letztens?" Out of the blue, when there's hundreds of people in line. I wasn't ready for it. And
What
I
did
was
he
like,
learn?
yeah, what I learned. Punkt I learned in Cheder Mesichta Beya. So I answered the Rebbe, ich habe gelernt Mesichta Beya. So the Rebbe says to me, welche halachas du gelernt? What he really, I assume, meant in Gemara, like which sugya. But I didn't take it that. I was a kid. Halachas, I told him Hilchas Shefer. I learned the Shefer. So the Rebbe says to me, wie viel Keilas blost mir Rosh Hashanah? So I said to the Rebbe, 100. And we all know. He asked, how many Keilas you blow? I said, 100. We all know. Everyone knows. Every kid knows he blow 100. So the Rebbe asked me a question. All these 100 Keilas, is Medina the Gemara or not? This that you have to blow 100 Keilas, does it come from the Gemara? Everyone knows that Midaraisa you have to blow 9, which turned into 30 because we don't know Trua, so it's 30. The rest are not Midaraisa. Where did it come from? Is it from the Gemara? He asked me these words, is the 100 Keilas Medina the Gemara? And I didn't know. I didn't learn that. I didn't answer. The Rebbe saw that, so the Rebbe gave me Psalekach. I said, I think Shana Tevim Sukkah, don't you remember? And we left. And I felt very, that as a loser, I didn't know the answer. I asked adults, send like your people, no one knew the answer. I ask people now.
You didn't ask me yet.
Yeah. Which one is? So that was Shana Rabba Tovshin Yutches. Then I was by the Farbrengens. I was a kid. I was sitting there. I didn't understand things. One thing I remember from one of the Farbrengens in Chastere that made such an impression. I remember it like now. I looked in the Hanochas from those Farbrengens, not a word of that. But in the middle of the Farbrengen, middle of the Sikha, I don't know about the what, the Rebbe said that to do Birur Hamidis, to purify your emotions, your attributes, is a Shvera Aveda. And then the Rebbe stopped and smiled, and he said, the Rebbe, proof to us there's Zen. Try it, you'll see. It's a Shvera Aveda. So that was what my memory from Tovshin Chai. Then we went into Yechidus. I was so scared to go into Yechidus, my father, because who knows, not ask me more questions and I won't know. But went to Yechidus. That was the famous Farbrengen known as the Farbrengen from Kalt und Schmutzig. When the downstairs was still,
Say the story.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story.
One of the integral components of being a chassid are the Chassidish Yomim Tevim and Yom Pagra. Whether it's Hey Tevis, Yud Shvat, Yud Aleph Nissen, or Gimmel Tammuz. These days give us an opportunity to connect with our Rabbeim, to connect with each other, and be better chassidim. What is the story behind each of these days? How did the Rebbe commemorate and celebrate these days? And most importantly, what are the lessons, the takeaways, and the action items Hamaisa Hua Ikr needed for each of these days? All of this and much, much more are answered in the new set recently published by Der Herr. Our Days is a journey through the Chabad calendar in story, meaning, and practice. With over 700 beautiful, glossy pages with elevated content, beautiful, beautiful photographs, you, your family, and friends will enjoy and live with each Chassidish Yom Tiv. This book is a must for every Lubavitcher home, for every shul, for every school. It is a perfect gift item. This will not collect dust. It will be used day after day, month after month, year after year. You can have this set. Go to derher.org/Our Days. Order your set today and start living with the Chassidish Yom Tov.
There was no shul, no built shul. There was just the big sukkah. They called it the shalash. So at sukkahs, it was a sukkah. And during the year, they covered with canvas. And that's where the Farbrengen was. So that's some chassid. It was covered with canvas. And that's where the Rebbe Farbrengen. The canvas had holes. And it rained in, pouring. And it was mud. I remember the Rebbe, even when he came out, they had to walk on benches. Because he couldn't walk on the floor. So when he came the next morning, the Gabbai stood by the Rebbe's door and said, we can't daven downstairs. We have to daven upstairs. Weil unten is kalt und schmutzig. Downstairs is cold and dirty. So by one of the Farbrengens, the next Farbrengen, the Rebbe spoke about it. And the Rebbe said, mit geschickt shliach to find out what's doing. And the nicht shliach, it's not just a shliach, it's a shliach ben Hashemayim. And the shliach brought back the message. that it's kalt and schmutzig. It's still cold by us and dirty. And the Rebbe went out. How could that be? We passed Elul, we passed Rosh Hashanah, we passed Aseres Yom and Yom Kippur, Dalad Yom Yom Kippur, the Sukkot. We passed Sukkot already. We passed Chalamet Sukkot and passed Shana Rabba. Was kum Simchas Torah. Was noch alt, kalt and schmutzig. The Rebbe was crying, and I remember he put his head down on the table, which was very a few other times also, but put down crying. And you could hear him out loud crying. It was very. That was the Farbrengens of Kalt and Schmutzig. Just by the way, if we're talking about it already, Tovshin Chov Gimmel, which is only 5 years later, Erev Yutas Kislev, the shul was built already. The electricity went. So the Gabbai stood by the Rebbe also by the door and told the Rebbe, and since there was no electricity, there was no lights, and there was no heating. He told the Rebbe, we can't daven downstairs, weil unten is kalt und finster. When we heard that he said it, I couldn't understand the guy. And the Rebbe took a davened upstairs, but if I bring downstairs in the dark, daven mincha downstairs. After even though those years the Rebbe would go back upstairs to daven mincha downstairs. By the end of the Farbrengen, the Rebbe said, that's the last sikha, that a few years ago, the story that happened, he said with Kaltner Schmutzik. But I want to tell a story. So there was an old lady that she started reading in Senerenda the stories of Chumash. And she read the story of Mechiras Yosef, how they sold Yosef. And she was crying, such a Rachmanis and Yosef. He sold him, and she was crying. Next year, when she read it again, she wasn't crying. So someone asked her, why aren't you crying? You cried last year. He said, no, I'm not crying. Why didn't you remember what happened last year? And he went again. I can't cry for it. So the Rebbe said, I'm not getting so excited now from this. But that was Purim Simchas Torah Tov Chai. And then from then on, every Simchas Torah till including Nun Dalet, including Nun Hey. I came to New York, and since Nun Hey I stopped. But I used to come I was there every Simchas Torah since then. But anyway, from Tavshin Chov, I learned in New York. I learned in Bedford till Tavshin.
So every Simchas Torah from Tavshin Chai,
So I was there by the Nayan Nigunim. That's one of the things to remember, which is to relive the Gishmak. And now I'm talking about the Gishmak for Nefesh Bahamis, not only for Nefesh Lakis. The Gishmak of being by the Nayan Nigun. A whole year you waited for the Nayan Nigun on Simchas Torah.
Can you describe a little bit what the
Yes.
tzira was like when the Rebbe
And
taught the Nigunim?
the way it started, I wasn't there. It was before my time. But after Simchas Torah at night, there was like this. First, it was Farbrengen. Farbrengen started 9 o'clock to went to probably 12:31, 12 was better. That was Simchas Torah at night. The Rebbe left for about a half hour. They changed the structure of the shul so it should be ready for Akofis. The Rebbe would come down for Akofis. So Akofis, he came down about 1:30. Then there was Akofis, took a few hours. After Akofis, the Rebbe went upstairs to eat the Yontiv meal. Because they used till as long as the Rebbe Chamedim was alive, the Rebbe ate the Yontiv meals upstairs. He went up
After
after Akofis. You can imagine what time that was. So the meal finished probably is 5 o'clock in the morning or something. I don't know. I'm just throwing out numbers. Then the Rebbe came downstairs, and it wasn't officially to teach a 9 He came down to distribute mashke to all those who take upon themselves a heisofe in Limud Achsidus. And while the Rebbe was distributing it, he would teach a new nigun. And then he would ask people to sing over the nigun. Usually he would give an introduction to the nigun, where the nigun comes from, or the meaning of the nigun is. The main one, what that people remember, is Shamil's nigun, when he told the whole story of Shamil, and the Rebbe was crying. That was Tov Sheyutes. But I remember
So
Tov
you were there.
Shechai. I was there, Tov Shechai, when it was, I think, the nigun, hey, some of that nigun. And then I remember Atav Chatona, Reb Sholem Aroza was laying on by the Rebbe's feet, crying. People said, shh. And the Rebbe said, lost them. But it's all tziyurim from them, but it was such a feeling. But I do remember Tov Shin Chov Dalet, when the Rebbe came in, and the way the Rebbe started, I told one of my friends, I'm afraid this is the last year. What made me think so? Because right away the Rebbe started saying, I say always that this is only for those who take upon themselves a sofer and limud achsidus. This is not like kosher bracha that everyone stands in line to take. And I see little kids standing in line. So you should know that he said it very stark. So you see that he's upset. and the Rebbe started giving the mashke and teaching the niggin, but nobody actually moved to take the kids out or to and it continued for some odd reason. It's Shemin HaShamayim. How could it be? As long as no one felt that it's up there, should have been, I guess, the Vadim Sadar, I don't know, but it wasn't. So the Rebbe stopped, and the Rebbe said, I said that this is only for those. And B'meila, what's going to happen now, in 15 minutes, it's going to be over. I'm going to stop. And the Rebbe added these words. I don't know if it's written Anoch or not. I don't think so, but I'm telling you, this is Klor Vider Tog, clear as day. And the Rebbe finished off and saying, Yet und jetzt wird man sehen, was wird sein mit die alle Chachomim, was bleiben allemal bis auf. The Chachomim always waited to get kosher bracha. The Rebbe is almost finished. They come running, and you have to. So look, so the Rebbe used a lashon. Now I'm telling you, I'm going to stop in 15 minutes. Wir wird sehen, jetzt wird man sehen, was wird sein mit die alle Chachomim, was warten allemal bis auf. It was a quarter. Give me a suffix. If it was a quarter to 6 or a quarter to 7. I think it was a quarter to 7, but I can't say sure. The clock was there, and I looked. When this clock struck, or 6 or 7, I think it was 7. The Rebbe took the cup and put it down. That's it. He's not giving anymore. In the meantime, he taught the second niggin. So first he taught the niggin Kyo, and then he taught the other niggin from Hulekenu. And he said, because next year I'm not sure if there'll be another new niggin or not, but maybe he taught it. Next year, when he finished Hakofis, he walked out and he said, as I said last year, there won't be a niggin this year. B'meila, he started singing. So I remember he started singing Hulekenu, last year's niggin. I have a big argument with Reb Shmulu. He told us no, the Rebbe started out of a carton. Said that's not the way I remember. Good, I don't know. Whatever
So
it is.
you're saying that I think the way people always explain it is that the Rebbe did it until the Rebbe Zechana was nostalgic and Tavshachafei, and then he stopped. But the way you're saying it, I mean, obviously we don't know for sure, but it sounds like this is a decision the Rebbe made then.
I don't know. The Rebbe said,
Or whatever, something was going on then
he
the year
said
before.
he's not sure what's going to be next year. In other words,
You know, he said, no, for sure the Rebbe said that.
So I'm saying so.
Sure that, yeah.
So it's
See, the Rebbe, there was
Chode's connected. That because of that, what shot Yontiv, you can't sing a nuning. Yontiv is no availus. It's not so pushed. It seems connected. I also think it's connected, but you can't know.
There's a milsa
another
time
like
the Rebbe felt like people weren't taking it seriously. So
right, Yudbe Stam stuff Shochavei. The Rebbe wanted that you sing Net Net, and the Rebbe, and no one knew the niggin. And the Rebbe said it was stuff Shochavei. I would teach the niggin, but because of my matzah proti, I can't do it. So he did hold himself back, but that was a weekday. Right. I don't know, but this is things that we could speculate. We could think. Some people think this. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
The Rebbe said something similar about why he's stopping Yechidus. That people are not menutzes neshes. That people are not utilizing it properly.
Not utilizing it, yeah. And them taruis shilas from a Musa Sefer. People ask shilas in Aveda, they take it out of a Musa Sefer. And when you ask shilas, and then next year you go in and you say, I didn't keep what you said. Yes, last year, Rebbe, the mentor, the whole thing stopped. And the Rebbe, when he stopped being the Sicha 1 year,
the
Sichas, so the Rebbe referred to it. It referred to stopping the Nunigen. He said, and made it as a taina. No one took it serious. And when he stopped in Chanukah Geld, the Rebbe used to give the Bochum every year Chanukah Geld Chanukah. So the Rebbe referred to it, and as a taina that people really didn't pay attention so much to it. Stopping the Maimorim, the Rebbe said that he stops. Shmugel Tarain, he says, I push in a Maimer can't sicher v'im ruf the sun. So these are all things that when you talk about it, it brings back. The Apostle says, of the Hamuna v'nichrasa mipihem. So I think it's a word from Baal Shem Tov. Of the Muna means the Muna was lost, but Nichrasa mipihem, it's cut out of their mouth. He's complaining, the Navi is complaining that people are losing a Muna. I think Baal Shem Tov teaches, of the Hamuna is, you know why the Muna is lost? Because v'nichrasa mipihem, stop talking about it. If we talk about it, so this talking itself is important, that people should get the picture. And I always tell you, this maybe causes you to feel jealous. It's very good. It's exactly what the kavanah is. Be jealous. Feel bad that you were there. But mainly you have to work on having it now as much as possible. Bagashmis.
Yeah. So and every year it's very interesting. So every Simchas Torah, you would come to the Rebbe. You already had a shul in Miami.
That was years later. But
Same, but while
usually,
you already had a shul
when
when
I
you were
came to
coming.
Miami in after some Chastera Tovshin Lamed Dalet. So till then, I was in New York. So I lived there. I was in Yeshiva. I learned in some 70. I came to bed for Tovshin Chof and the Chof. Learned there till Chof, middle of Chof Gimel, Tammuz Chof Gimel. Then I learned some 70 till I got married. Tovshin Lamed Aleph. Then I learned in Kailas. I was there. But then after, as I used to come also, used to come Bistami, Shvatis, and some other times, and then came Simchas Torah. So I was always there Simchas Torah, and I had my place. Later years when they made the shul bigger, I had to move back, but I had my place right by the Rebbe. Simchas Torah by the Rebbe. I would stand. The Rebbe's bime, where the Rebbe stood. I stood there by a kofis together with Rabbi Leibel. Rabbi Leibel place. And since it was after Farbrengen and there was no chazorah, so quietly between our kofis, Rabbi Leibel quietly would chazer with me the sicha, the nekudas, the Rosh Yeshiva, could they to remember. So
This
that
is
was
all the
Simchas Torah
years. You're talking about when you were Bacher.
when I was a bocher, right? Till yeah, later when I left, when I was a bocher, yeah.
Because you were part of the
Part of
chesed,
Chazorah, part of the Chesed, yeah.
the whole story with
A
that.
story, yeah, which everyone knows.
I don't know if everyone knows, but you stood next to Rebbe by the Farbrengen.
I stood next to the Farbrengen, and here we made special to stand there. And because I stood there, I was able to see things, hear things, the marshal. I saw myself.
So you
No, I was
got a
standing right
place.
there. I got a
So
place right there, right in front of the Rebbe. I stood in front of the Rebbe, 2 feet from the Rebbe. The Rebbe was standing on the
yeah,
beam, and I was on the floor.
yeah.
And there were the poles there, the beam had the poles on the wall, the wall of the beam. So I was standing there, and we used to talk. I remember I saw the Rebbe put his hand into his pocket to take out his handkerchief, and when he picked up his tuk, I saw the gartel inside.
On the tzitzis, on the
I don't
shirt.
know on the shirt. I don't know if people connect. Maybe it was the same thing. I don't know because the Friedrich Rebbe said on the Rebbe getting the gartel ganzen Tag. I don't know if he means the gartel and the tzitzis.
So Rebbe had on the shirt.
I don't know. I saw the
So you
things.
saw.
I saw with my own eyes. I saw the things. Like people are talking. Things you talk. You have to know one thing. That what people say, lav dafka is true. I said, I feel when I said the Zechreines, I made sure only to say, oh, I heard it from a Clerishan or I was there myself. But stories as so what people say, when you see it, so this I saw, I'm able to say when they say the Rebbe had a Gart Lagans and Tog, I saw it on myself under the shirt. When he picked up the sea, I saw. When the guys from the Israeli consulate used to come, those years, I was able to hear the Rebbe talk. I remember this was by Yom Kippur War, Tavshalom Dalet. I was still standing then. I remember I overheard the Rebbe stood there at least 45 minutes. I said, while the Elon was waiting, the Rebbe told them that they should go into Damascus. The Rebbe spoke to them. I remember the answer that Damascus the tanks can't go because it's too rocky. The Rebbe, I don't know don't remember what he said, but he's like laughing. It's a joke. They can't go with the rocks. What kind is it? And he said, I want you to go, the right thing is to go and take over Damascus and not to keep it. To go. And he said it by Farbrengen also. You should take over Damascus and then give it back. Mir Gedenksach, again, this I can't say for sure. Midachsach, he said, that's I'm pretty sure. But started to think it's fake is that he said go in Damascus, take it over. I think he said go into the banks, take out all the money and leave.
Hmm.
Something like that. I think anyway. But that was the benefit of standing there. But they're standing there very close. But I could not have the close place to the Rebbe Sakofe. You couldn't have both.
You had to choose which one.
Gemara, the Rebbe quoted this Gemara when this me Yehudi, so the Rebbe said people should go. One year, the Rebbe said people should go into shuls Tisha B'Av and speak about me Yehudi. And anybody who speaks about me Yehudi on Tisha B'Av in the shuls, the Rebbe will give him $1. No dollars then. We're talking those years. Which year was it? Lamed Beis maybe. So, and they did. I remember I went. I went both times. Friday Tisha B'Av at night, and next night actually I came to the Svadish shul in Borough Park, and I asked the gabbai there if I could speak 2 minutes for about me Yehudi. He said no. He walked out, and the minyan finished. I got up and I started speaking. I spoke about it for 2 minutes. By the time he heard about it, he came running. I was finished already. But then I remember I got $1 from the Rebbe. People who were Amerikashlich, Bochrim Amerikashliches, weren't there. So after they came back, they wrote to the Rebbe. We heard about it. So we also spoke about mentorship. We want $1. So the Rebbe first of all answered that you got, whenever you went to America, Rebbe had to give each group $2 from the Rebbe. So you got your dollar. Besides that, he quoted the Gemara in Yuma. It says that people would stand and watch the king go to the mikveh or go, and some people would watch him learning the Torah, but you couldn't do both. But not because you're not allowed to, because if you had a place here, you couldn't do it there. Same thing here, you couldn't. So I didn't have that, but you could see from far. But most of that conference, I was there. I was there when the Rebbe. I was standing right there when the Rebbe got his heart attack because I came from. I was still standing there.
So you're ready on shlichus
And yeah,
then.
I was there for a few years, but when I came back, I had my place. That's
Mm-hmm.
one thing. I had my place. So I stood next to the Rebbe, was standing there, and I saw the Rebbe looking to the crowd. I saw the Rebbe's face go white, mamish like a sheet, pale. And Rabbi Groner was standing right there. No one knows. I'm telling you, people won't maybe believe me. I pulled Rabbi Groner by his capote. I was on the floor. He was standing on the beam. I pulled him. Learners took around to me. He said, "Give the Rebbe his chair."
So
And
he
as
didn't
I said,
notice.
he didn't notice because he was standing here, and the Rebbe was in front of him. Give the Rebbe the chair. As I said it, I don't know if the Rebbe heard it or not. The Rebbe turned around to him and pointed to the chair. That's when the Rebbe sat down. So I was there, right, standing right there, mamish, inches, 2 feet away, maybe.
And the Rebbe sitting on the chair in the middle of Hakafas was
Yeah,
a
it was a yeah, but
shockwave.
yeah, but I saw before her. Then when they started screaming, they knocked the windows out and they started screaming that people Wasser, Wasser. So they brought from the sink across the other room. They brought the water. And people write in the Yemanim, you can't believe everything it says. They write that the Rebbe didn't said, I can't do it because it's no sukkah before Kiddush. The Rebbe didn't say anything. The Rebbe just dismissed it. But you know why? Besides the sukkah and the Kiddush, a dirty quart, and the Rebbe's going to drink it, make him more sick but the Rebbe didn't want. We didn't say anything. We just assumed that it's before Kiddush and before and outside of the sukkah. Shemini Atzeres. Well, I was standing there, so that's where I had the.
Oh. And so you stood there later, the later years also.
Yeah, yeah, later, till they made it bigger, and then they moved everyone away. So in the year, not like next year, the year Tov Shalom Ates, that's when they made that people shouldn't stand so close, so there should be more air. I was there too, even though my wife gave birth on Shabbos, and Simchas Torah was Shemini Atzeres was Sunday night. I took a plane on Ishana Rabbah, and I came, and I told my wife, Tov Shalom Ates, impossible to stay home for Simchas Torah. The year after the heart attack, and the Rebbe is going to come out to our coffers. Impossible. Impossible. So I came back.
And what did your wife say?
I had no choice. I don't know. No, anyway, she was in the hospital. So I told her I can't do anything. I can't. Hospital is not next to the house. So what's going to be anyway? I have to give my children out to different people to stay, and I'm not going to be with you anyway. So what's the difference? Yontif, you're going to be there. So I went. People couldn't believe it. I saw people on Shana Rabbi side. I told them I got a mazel tov. I had a boy. When did you have a boy? Yesterday. Anyway, but that's how it is. Certain things, I said that's not possible. I'm a test not to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm saying this is you need oxygen.
Yeah, exactly. No, but this time Avad, that year when it's right after the heart attack, I was standing there, I'm standing there, and I see, and the Rebbe made a fratstov, not so strong, but one very long, standing there by one of the coffers like this. I see Salma Garari pointing to Ira Weiss, Dr. Weiss, making like this, like go over to the Rebbe, tell him to stop. I mean, it was still the Rebbe's heart was not the boy, and he didn't know what to do. Why? But it was on Garari. So he started walking closer to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe noticed him coming closer. The Rebbe made him like this. Verstehst du? Er ist schon geblieben tanzen. Ich sage, ich gesprungen, getanzt.
Uh-huh. And then saying it was that the whole event of Tashlan Ches was like it came out of nowhere, but then after, I'm saying afterwards is
Yeah,
from Lamed Ches
yeah.
onwards is a
On was a
whole
whole
new
new world,
gili.
a whole new deal. True, but just nice. No one thought it's possible. You looked at the Rebbe. The Rebbe, this is not shaykh. Things like this should happen. This,
Wasn't there something in Tafshach Dalet?
yeah, but that didn't
The Rebbe,
change the Rebbe's. It didn't change the Rebbe's. The Rebbe's like daily work and things. He came to Seven Sunday.
the Rebbe had a heart attack then? Tafshach
Yeah,
Dalet?
a small heart attack.
You
Yeah.
knew about it when you were Bachrin?
Then some people knew. Yeah, well, you knew a little still, right? No one knew. No one really knew.
No, and it didn't
No,
disturb
but there
the.
were time that Rebbe went home at night like this. He would go home 11, 12 o'clock at night. He went home 9 o'clock.
Mhm.
And it was
You
his,
say so you're saying in Lamed Ches, no one. It wasn't
yeah,
possible such a thing.
yeah. The thing was not Eila Ladas on anybody. It should be a heart of the Rebbe. It's not shaykhs. It's a different, you looked at the different, but, the Elam got to sit there to me from that.
So you're saying the fact that the Rebbe recovered right away
It's a
reinforced
Porsche
that it's
Zach.
not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a no, it's Porsche Zach. That's shaykh different. There were no one thought anything else.
And that's also. So that's we still didn't understand. The Chavzai Nadig and Gimmel like we still it doesn't make any sense.
Right, right, right.
Mm.
They have no eyes about it, yeah. So the Rebbe said when those Bochum were in the fire, the car fire, when they went to Chasana, there was a
Say
fire.
say.
No, there was a Chasana for one of the Chevra of my Kita, but I was like from the newer ones because I wasn't there all year, so I didn't go to that Chasana. It was out of town. And on the way back, there was a fire and they got hurt. And then, and the Rebbe actually had written before that in the letter in the Michtakloli, he added the word from Gdesh Elyon as noch a Sreife werden reich, after a Sreife you become richer. But that word I'm trying to bring out is one word that he spoke by Farbrengens about it, and he said the reason that happened is from the pliest mimdeim. It's from the wonders of the Eibishter, that's all. In other words, there's no, basically he was saying he has no explanation why it happened. Because the Bochrim were like a good Chassidish Bochrim, and there's all
Yeah.
the different things that took place, throughout all these years and experiences. Some experience that bleiben. I feel like small things, but sometimes it stays in you. The Moshel Tovshach of when the Rebbe down for the Omid. Who lit the candles? So Rabbi Shalom Yisrael Chadaka, Rabbi Chadakov's son, he used to do that. He used to light the candles before Shachar, before Mincha, before Ma'ariv. There was one day that he asked me after stay there that this day he can't be here by Mincha, so he asked me to light the candles. Punkt, somebody got married the night before. He told me it was Bein Hasdorim. If I could come and help him to set up his house. So I said, I can't go because I have to be here on time before the Rebbe comes in to light the candle. Don't worry, you'll be finished. You'll be finished. I went to the house and he nudged me, stay more, stay more. I said, I can't. I have to leave now. And the last minute I left, and it was middle of the winter, and with the coat and with the scarf, and I saw it's late. The Rebbe was coming out any minute. So I ran. I didn't even take off my coat. I ran straight. Everyone was waiting for Mincha. I ran straight into the shul, in my coat, in my scarf. I even had one of the gloves on or something. And I took the matches. I started lighting the candles. And as I'm lighting the candles, the Rebbe walked in. And the Rebbe walked in and he stood there waiting for me. Imagine I'm standing there looking like an idiot. And the Rebbe is standing next to me, waiting for me to light it. I couldn't even light. It's the Shigangen. That for weeks and weeks, when you can't come to sich, couldn't get to myself. The feeling of standing there like a mamish like this, but it's an impression that anyway. These are some the feelings you have sometimes,
What's the feeling?
or the feeling now.
No, I'm saying yeah,
No, or the feeling of how could I do such a thing?
yeah.
In other words, feeling standing in front of the Rebbe, mamish like in front of the king, is standing and like standing. If you're standing and doing something, you do it before. The Rebbe has to wait. Even the Rebbe is a second. The Rebbe 1 minute has to waste this much time and standing there. and lighting. You do that before. That's why I was planning to. That's why it's like a bet. I can't come. No, it's a genudget and schlepped me to his house. Anyway, but this is something that leaves an impression. All the whole time being living, the whole life in 770 was living with the Rebbe. That's all it was.
When did
Especially
you come? When did you come to 770?
to learn
You said you
Tafshin
said you
Chav
said already. Tata Chav Gimel, yeah.
Gimel, Tammuz Chav Gimel. I remember we came, but the whole life was, especially those who were more involved in the sichas. So it was all around the Farbrengens and around what the Rebbe said. Then when you're involved in first, the Rebbe made the Chesrim, and then we were involved in making the Hanoches. So I was
One
much
second. So
involved.
you, how what happened over there? That you got that the Bachrim got involved in the before it was
In
just
the,
Rabbi Leibel doing it.
there were a lot of there Bochum who helped, but not official. Other Bochum said, a lot of Bochum said,
So what
because
was the whole official thing to make
I,
Chesed? Why was that
I
important?
believe, I never verified it, but I think Rabbi Leibel wrote to the Rebbe.
He said
I
it's hard
think
for him to do it.
hard for him to do it himself. He needs people to be involved more. So that's when so all I know is we were sitting in 770, Yitzvat at night, the night of Yitzvat, and Rabbi Yoman Klein comes in looking for a few guys. He had names, and he found the guys he was looking for. Said, Rabbi Chadaka wants to see you. Those years, Rabbi Chadaka wants to see you. It was mamish showing something. So we went in, and
What
he
year are we talking about?
Tov Chavov.
Mm-hmm.
That's 59 years ago. You know what I
Okay.
mean? It's a long time. And he said the Rebbe asked, he said clearly, usually when he'd say things to the Rebbe, he wouldn't say the Rebbe, the name of the Rebbe. He just would say, this is what we're asking you to do. The Rebbe asked if you would be ready to become, I don't remember the Losh, helpers of Chazorah, be part of Chazorah, something like that. We agreed. And he said, but you should know the responsibility that you're taking. That was the night of Yitzhak. Next night was the big Farbrengen. The day after that, we get a message from Rabbi Klein that Rabbi Chodakov said
Who is the group?
it was Rabbi Shlomo Zarchi and Rabbi Ephraim Pekarsky and myself and Rabbi Shalom Levitin. And he
And
said that
Nachman Shapiro.
no,
It wasn't.
no,
Okay.
he wasn't part of the group. Either was Rabbi Galitsky, even though Rabbi Galitsky was writing the Sikh, he used to write Hanoches. I used to go over it again. I just take off and add whatever I was, but I don't know why. I can't say who chose the names. I don't know. So we went in. But the next day, he said, the Rebbe asked, but why didn't you guys go over to the Rebbe for this being appointed by the Farbrengen of Yitzvat? And then the Rebbe said, since I didn't go, let him come Shabbos, there'll be a Farbrengen, let him come over. So Shabbos, we went up to the Bima, standing all four of us. And as we walked over, Rabbi Chadakov got up from his chair to the Rebbe to tell him what we're there for. So the Rebbe said, ich weiß. But he turns around and he says, like saying, what are you here for? So the first one standing, it says, I take it upon myself to help Chazorah. Then you turn to the next each one. Do eichet. You too. He wanted each one to verbally say it. Then we went down to our place. Rabbi Leibel was then standing on the other side. So the Rebbe turns around to him and he said, let him also say L'chaim. And then he said, well, or let them come to you or you go to them. So he started coming to us and the Rebbe said to him, Steht doch bei Yosan shel Bailim. In other words, let them go to you. So we went over on his side. And then the Rebbe told us again all to drink a full cup of wine. And then he turned around and he said that the parents of the Bochrim who are here should also say L'chaim. So Shalom Levitin's father was there. His grandfather of Shmuel Levitin also said L'chaim, said something to the Rebbe. And then the Rebbe said, who else? So Rav Shlomo Zarchi's father wasn't there. My father wasn't there. He was in Cleveland. Rabbi Ephraim Pekarsky's father was there, and he was sitting. No, the Rebbe was sitting up front. He was down one of the tables. The Rebbe says out loud to him, "Should say L'chaim." And then the Rebbe says to him, "Yofekeich ben v'keich av," which Poshup Shat means that the son is greater than the father. But in that Farbrengen, in the Sikhe before, the Rebbe brought the Chassidish Pshat that Yofekeich ben mikeich av, and so he also said L'chaim. And from then on, we started working. So it's even though the Chazorah, the Sichas Hanochas were lav dafka connected to these four exactly, but that's when we started giving out the Hanochas. Till then, the Yale used to write, but he stopped because he had to do the Sefer Erkim.
Sefer.
The the Rebbe wanted to do it. So
The Hanachas that you were writing, it was just for Hanachas that they're not mugger, right? It has nothing to do with Lakut Sichas.
this is a separate issue. Good is a separate issue. This is just writing the Nochas Farbrengen. And I remember when we started doing it and thinking of giving it out, there was a discussion amongst us. The Pela worked like this. Those years, Rabbi Galitsky would sit by Chazorah and take notes. Then he would type up a sikha. He would give it to me, and I would go through it and add my 5 cents, and then add or write or whatever this. Then we decided to give it out, and this was like something illegal because it was only Yale was the one. So the discussion: what should write on the bottom?
I'm not following. Didn't the Biel want this?
It wasn't officially made that we should give out. No.
So officially, the Biel was still writing that.
They're still So whatever he wrote, he wrote. Whatever he didn't, he didn't. And most he didn't already. So we
He wasn't
decided.
doing it.
Yeah, so we decided. So Rabbi Galitsky would write. I would look it over and participate in the writing. Except the Yontif Dike Farbrengens, Rabbi Katz, himself Katz, so Ramar Fur Shleima. So he would, as soon as the Zman was over, he would say Baruch HaMavdol or make Havdolah and he had a pad hidden there where he was standing and take notes B'Shas Farbrengen. And after Farbrengen, next few days, I would sit with him and we would make a Hanocha from Farbrengen. But we had a shaila what to call it. To write Hanocha Bilti Mugya, I claimed, it was my time that you can't write that. That's like a copyright of Rabbi Yoel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we started writing Hanochas Hatmimi Bilti Mugya. It was a new invention. And the way it started really was funny. We were afraid to do it, so we made a Hanocha and put it out the tables where no one saw. And everyone saw a Hanocha laying around. Who wrote it? No one knew. I have to say, Noske Wolf, he's in Nachal Chabad, he was pushing a lot of it. He said, you have to give it out because we were afraid, And that's when it started. And the funny thing is, there were a long time we didn't have any reaction from the Rebbe. We didn't know if the Rebbe is happy and not happy till it came. This was Tovshin Chov Vov. Till it came Tovshin Chov Ches, I believe, one Farbrengen. And then the Rebbe said in that Farbrengen, the Yitzchak couldn't see. So in the Anochi we wrote, a Yitzchak given blind. So by Farbrengen, the Rebbe said, ich habe kommen der Rishimes, dort schreibt, na Yitzchak given blind. How could you say such an expression, na Yitzchak? So the Rebbe criticized it. But to us, the Rebbe recognized, acknowledged this thing, so we're so happy.
They say all press, even negative press, is good
Yes,
press,
it's good.
right?
Yeah. But in this case, it's Taka Kipshute. The Rebbe recognized that he should mention it. That the Rebbe should say that there's a son, he found a mistake.
You see, the Rebbe, I'm just not just the actual thing. You can't say that the Yitzhak was blind because it's not like a nice lashon.
Yeah, so you could say it's a Shmertzazen or something like that, but to say the word blind, the Rebbe didn't like.
So that was a recognition and an issue that the
Hanochas doesn't mean everything it says there is right.
By the way, you didn't ask Rabbi Chavikov, whatever. No. You understood that you need to do this under the table,
right? And that came the way they were writing down Hanochas. This came from then, and that's when we started. That took a long time. It took, but
I'm
first
saying
it came out.
It's the whole Klal Yisrael and the whole world is indebted to you because otherwise there wouldn't be proper Anachas for all these years.
Those, yeah. Maybe some private people wrote for themselves, but these are official Anachas came out. Yes, that is the truth. That is the truth. Whatever it is. That later other people started helping, and they started. That's how it developed. But when we started, it was a chiddush.
So what was the whole? So from that you got involved in the Likut Sichos?
No, so I was involved in Chazorah and I was involved in Hanochas. And then when the Rebbe stopped the Sichos went on a few times. The Rebbe made Tovshi Yud Ches was Chelik Aleph Beis, then Tovshi Chav Gimmel was Gimmel Daled, and then the Rebbe stopped. What happened? This Vadlav Sichos used to send out every week to different 10,000 addresses to send out the Mefis the Rebbe Sichos. What did they do? They would send out copies of old Sichos, only Mugya. So came to Option Tes. By that time, there was certain weeks there was nothing to send out. Everything was sent out already. So it was written.
Who was about the Sichos then?
The Gashmiz Gevad who were involved was Zalman Chanin and Shalom Jacobson
Back then, from the beginning.
from the beginning.
Yeah. Okay.
Not from the beginning, from Chelik Beis, Aleph and Beis. Those not. I'm talking from now, from the time I'm talking, from after the
Okay.
Chovs. So wrote to the Rebbe that maybe the Rebbe would be Magia Nusicher. So the Rebbe agreed. So a few weeks during the year of Tovshin Chovtes, Rebbe was Magia Nusichers. And then when the year was over, there's nothing else to send out. So they wrote to the Rebbe, maybe the Rebbe will start being Magia Sichas. And the Rebbe agreed. So Rabbi Yale would write the Look at the Sichas. That's where Chalokim from Hay to to Tes came out weekly Contrasim and then became this Chalokim. And then the Rebbe stopped and he spoke about it by Farbrengens and the Rebbe stopped. So Tovshin Lamed Beis, there was no Likud Sichas that came out. So few of us got together and we said, you know what, for him, it's not possible that he should work on the Sichas because the Rebbe expects other things from him. Let us try, Rabbi Yael, let
Because
us
the Rebbe
try
wanted to be able to do Sefer
Sefer Erkim.
Erkim.
At that time, it wasn't known as Sefer Erkim. That name came after, before, when it was printed. All
Because it
these
wasn't
years
printed
it was
yet.
known, no, all years it was known the Encyclopedia of Chassidus. That's what it was called. Just like Encyclopedia Talmudis, that's what it was known as. But when they printed it, the Rebbe said, Encyclopedia, we're talking, so the Rebbe gave it the name Sefer Erkim. But we said, but the Siches, let's see, maybe we could do it. So we had three of us
Who
got
who
together.
was there like someone instigating your chavra to do it? Or was
No,
it on your own?
we on our own. So it was the three people who were the two that were Gashmis, like the two I mentioned before, and then three of us, Rabbi Nachman Shapiro and Rabbi Leibel Kaplan, all of us Sholem, and myself sat down. We said, let us try to do it. We didn't expect it because Rabbi Yael was so good that anybody could take his place. Let's try. So we sat down. We said, let's prepare a few siches and give them to the Rebbe and see what the Rebbe will say. Then there was a whole vikuach. Which language should it be? Yiddish or Hebrew?
I know that you like the Hebrew, right?
I pushed for it.
I remember when I learned in Yeshiva Miami discussing
Yeah,
this with you. Yeah.
and I pushed. Otherwise, also I gave my svara. I still
Why did
have.
you feel that? Yeah,
I'll
why
tell
did
you
you
the
feel?
svara. Most people don't understand Yiddish. That's number one. Even then, now Lamosha certainly most people don't understand Yiddish. In Eretz Yisrael, they certainly don't know Yiddish. And Elamai, they translate the translations. I love Dafka good. And another main thing, you ever see a sefer written, a serious sefer in Yiddish? Tanarena is written, a Maisa Bichel is in Yiddish. You ever hear a
It's funny.
sefer in Yiddish?
It's funny. I just saw a few weeks ago. I'm not gonna say which chutzner. I was in some other place in another shul, and I opened up their Rebbe's Torah, and I saw it in Yiddish. I was surprised. Anyway, so yeah, concept does exist, maybe. Yeah.
Those
Okay.
maybe exist. And
Okay.
there was, but no one could think it's a sefer. We're talking about Likutei Sichos being, you say this the Kinigla, and you say Nechsidus, but
It's in
people don't
Yiddish.
look at it that way. So no one will even look at it. So we did it. We didn't even ask the Rebbe. We did it in Lashon Kodesh. Years later, the Rebbe was asked at one point, I think in
So why
Shvem.
why did Abiel have a preference for Yiddish? Because
No, it
it's the Rebbe's
started like that
language.
before. All the Sichos and the Frierdiker Rebbe were in Yiddish. Sichos were always in Yiddish. So we made like the Kutei Burim, the Chelik Beit, all the writing this. And it continued that way. No special reason. Years later, the Rebbe was asked which one he prefers, and the Rebbe answered these two words: "Ein nafkamina." So that's why we went back and forth. But that time we decided that we're going to try. So we sat down, we prepared for the parsha Breishis, Noach, Lech Lecha, Vayerech, Hayisora, Tildes, Vayetze, 7 sichas. Because one of the things that Rebbe was also not so happy before that it was given in last minute. Last minute, it pressured him to do it, and it was,
So,
So we said, let's give it in early
you wanted to basically that the Rebbe should know this is serious. That there's
and
7 weeks at a
serious, and yeah,
time.
right. And we wrote it settled that we wrote our names, we are doing this, and we're asking the Rebbe to be Magid. This should be look at this, and if the Rebbe would have comments. The pale we gave it in the middle of the summer. Nothing happened. The Rebbe didn't answer, didn't say anything. So we didn't know till it came Tishrei. It wasn't so Negeya because till Breishis, you still got time. Came Tishrei, and the Rebbe is so busy, this and that. We didn't expect, so we didn't know what's going to happen. Came Hishana Rabbah at night. So we were quite a few times when the Rebbe was Magia Sicha, what happened after he finished Chumash, Dvorim. Before Tilim, that's the time was Magia. So we thought maybe Shana Rabbe will be. So I remember all of us, all five of us standing upstairs and next to the Rebbe's room, waiting for before Tilim, Rabbi Groner would go in. Maybe he'll come out. Comes out from the Rebbe, nothing. So we decided that by Koshel Brocha, all five of us are going to get together and we're going to go to get Koshel Brocha. Our presence should be seen by the Rebbe, which will be like a reminder. So we went by, Rebbe looked at each one, gave Koshel Brocha, and he gave, I don't remember, to Sholem Jacobson, Allah Sholem, or he gave it to Reb Zalman Chanin. And one of them, he gave a bottle. He used to give bottles to the shluchim, a mashke. He gave it, and the Rebbe gave it to him, and he said with a big, big smile, "Das is farvadla fotzasiches." So we were sure. Okay, and after some chastayra, the muge came af morgen. This is the after some chastayra Farbrengens. Af morgen after some chastayra, we came to 7:70 early, waiting for Rabbi Groner to. When the Rebbe comes, he goes in right away. Came and went in, came out, nothing. It was already Wednesday. I think Simchas Torah was Tuesday. So if it's going to come out for Shabbos, it's late. So we didn't know what to do. So we had a hold of Shaila, and the end came out. We decided to do a little bit chutzpah. This is what we did. We made a copy of Breishis again, just of Breishis, and wrote on a little note saying this. This is what we are printing for Shabbos. And we're asking the Rebbe to be Magia. It was a big risk because the Rebbe could be very when you're giving it up for Shabbos. The pale a few hours later, the Rebbe Sicha came out Mugi. And that's how it started. And then it came Neach, Lech Lech, and then came. Then it was 2 years, and then it stopped again. Then it continued later. I left Miami, but I left Miami in the middle, and I was writing some of the Sichas for Miami. So that's not this Hanocha. Hanocha is a separate issue, and this is look at the Sichas. It's another issue. It's different. Hanocha is just writing down the Farbrengens. Look at the Sichas is communicating with the Rebbe, writing, and the Rebbe is asking and answering and back and forth. It was special. And then those that stayed and kept on writing the Sichas later was Reb Nachman and Reb Leibel Oltein. That's for all the years later.
They did it till Tafshin and Beis.
Till Darshan and Beis.
So once
In the
then,
middle, I was also a little bit involved. I mean, I was involved from far, but I wrote a few, not many, very few. I wrote even those.
I think I heard from you once that when you went on shlichus, you said that it's b'tanai you could be involved. Is that
I didn't say it like that, but yeah, but I that was in my mind. Yes.
in your mind?
No. I probably said it. No, but not officially to the Rebbe or anything. I didn't.
That was whatever.
I said it, yeah,
Well,
to the Vad.
your shlichus in Miami was for the yeshiva
Yeah.
to start the yeshiva.
Yeah.
What was at that time it was only bachrim, like there was shluchim bachrim, and it was
Right. The Rebbe,
shluchim.
only shluchim plus one bacher. The first year there was another bacher besides the shluchim. The Rebbe sent 11 shluchim, and there was one bacher local that joined.
And it stayed like that. There was only shluchim.
Yeah, for this, but not so long. Not long. After that, there was one bacher who learned in New York and wanted to come. I asked the Rebbe if we could take him. Actually, whenever I asked the Rebbe, I didn't write every little thing to the Rebbe. I used to write to Rabbi Chadikov. But everyone knew that if you write to him a shaila, he'll give it into the Rebbe. So I knew, but I didn't have the chutzpah. So the Rebbe said, don't take him. Ein inyone klal hilochem im temchet mimim. You're not here to be a competition to temchet mimim.
This is the second year?
This was maybe it's the middle of the first or the beginning of the second.
But there were people that came the second year.
Later they came. After I was in Yechidus, Shavuos, I went up to the Rebbe for Shavuos.
Wait, when are you talking about? No, I'm not.
Oh, so this was like that first year. So I asked the Rebbe about taking this other bocher. The Rebbe said, "Don't be competition. You're not your kavanah." This was the middle of the winter. Then for that Shavuos, I went to New York, and I went into Yechidus, and I asked the Rebbe. The whole reason the Rebbe wrote because it's competition. Timchut Mimim. What happens if the whole of Timchut Mimim wants it that they should come? Then he said, then you can take it.
So
So that's when we
that's when
started. That's when we
taking
started.
Bachrim. But there
But
weren't a lot.
not a lot. Then came more, whatever. That's
One of them was my Shver, actually,
who.
Rabbi Tovi Teldin.
Yeah, I don't
Was
know if he
the
was the
second year.
first year, but the
I think
second
the
year.
second year, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Very interesting. So and the shlichus was like how did shlichus work then at that time? It was like you had a hatzah and you wrote it into the Rebbe,
Right. That everybody was like all shlichus were like that. The
or were
Rebbe
there a
said
lot of people? Were there a lot of people going on shlichus then? Tafshan Lamed Daled,
not that
Lamed
much,
Gimel.
but those that did go wrote to the Rebbe. Some people asked the Rebbe where should he go. The Rebbe said that's not how we do it. Sign that so I'll choose which one, or maybe I'll add another one. But usually the Rebbe would choose. So here also I had a few atzos, and the Rebbe wrote something, and as the maskone, he said, okay, so then go to Miami.
But you knew that shlichus is the only like is what you're doing.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
yeah.
figure out how it worked then in those
What
years
what should be?
when you were. I'm saying I don't know. Stay in New York,
No, I
teach
had no.
somewhere.
No. I wanted to go for a shlichus for sure, but it has to be a shlichus that's fit. Everyone has their keiches. I can become a shliach, especially then. I spoke English, but I couldn't give a speech in English. I mean, I was I'm in yeshiva, had nothing to do with all these things. So I can go on shlichus to a university college or something like that. So I knew that this field would be more fit. So that's why I looked for this field.
So you wrote to the Rebbe hatzais that were connected
So it's to this type of
to
field. Another place about Rabbonis, this whatever, but all in the Klekedish type of thing, not in like a Chabad house or doing that more askonis.
Among Chassidim is brought to you by Chassidische Der Herr. We live in a chaotic world, a world where for us Chassidim is a seinu, lei ra'inu, we do not have the ability to hear and see the Rebbe on a daily basis. Yet we know that the Rebbe is very much with us, and the Chassidus Chabad is alive and thriving more than ever before. One needs to only tap into it. Chassidische Der Herr provides you and your family with the tools necessary to tap into all of this. Whether it's the monthly magazine, the way it all began, whether it's Der Herr books, Der Herr online content, and so much more. Men, women, and children throughout the world benefit and use these tools on a daily basis. Whether it's children enjoying the children's magazine that comes along with the regular Der Herr, or enjoying the children's podcast, whether it's Bachrim in yeshivas receiving the Der Herr, whether it's girls in high schools enjoying Der Herr club in their local high school. People all over the world and from all walks of life enjoy and utilize these tools and take advantage of it. If you're not already subscribed to the Her Monthly Magazine, do so today at derher.org. That's derher.org. Derher is a dynamic organization which is committed to continue providing these tools, grow on a constant basis, and do all that we can to help this effort. Baruch Hashem, it takes a lot of resources and finances to make this all happen. You can be part of Derher through your financial support as well, through visiting our website derher.org or through contacting us to setting up a meeting. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the podcast. But there were some of your chavedim at the Rebbe wanted them to stay in New York, right?
Where Reb
Like
Shlomo Zarchi.
Shlomo Zarchi, yeah.
Yeah, there were some. Yeah, he told me he asked the Rebbe a year later also about going to shlichus. So the Rebbe said if he does his job in Messina, he does shlichus.
In New York.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
yeah. And it's not important. You have to educate shluchim. Isn't that also shlichus? If everyone will go on shlichus and there'll be nobody to be mechanech the bachrim, and then you ain't gonna have shluchim. So that's important.
That's part of shlichus.
Part of shlichus, yeah.
So let's backtrack a little bit when you were a bacher by the Rebbe. It sounds. I remember a story you said once that something about you wrote to the Rebbe like a bunch of Bachrim wrote to the Rebbe about the Gzeira, about they wanted to bring.
It's one of those things I don't like to talk about.
Oh, I don't remember that. I remember you talking about that. I don't remember
Yeah,
if it's.
talk around it, yes, but directly not. It's
What I'm saying is, I don't remember the story 100%, but what I take from that story is that there was like a certain, you were right next to the Rebbe the entire time, saying
that's
like
for sure.
like
No, but this story came through a mistake. That's not a serious story. No, it happened, but it was somebody by
right,
mistake didn't understand.
right. My
I'll tell
point
you,
is
that not the whole protein, but just on the general. We're sitting and talking and bringing, but we can't gemashke.
because the Rebbe then made
Zayda, yeah,
the Hagbala
Zayda.
Mashke.
So someone said maybe we have the Rebbe. So we said, you know what? Let's. So we took a piece of paper and someone wrote down, "Can we drink mashke?" or something like that. So someone of was standing there, a bocher, took the paper. He says, "Bocher, machen sich mishuge." He took this, came over to a guy walking in Tichidis to the Rebbe and gave it to him. And the guy gave it to the Rebbe. It was it's a mistake. No one, when he came back, said, "Yeah, I just gave it." What? Anyway, but that's it wasn't pleasant.
So the
But
Rebbe didn't.
that does show that the connection. Like, yeah, but this was not a pleasant thing that happened there. Whatever, all the different things that came out of it.
I'm saying that in the later years there was like it was a big crowd and this big elam, but in those years there was like a certain like closeness that
Yeah,
the Bachram had. I mean,
you
there
were
weren't
you
so
were
many.
able to feel close to the Rebbe in a personal level. I remember Yechidis. That's what you felt when you went out of Yechidis. I remember many times I felt that way, but everybody else who went in for weeks after you were out in Yechidus and you would stand there by Milchemayim or by Farbrengen, know what feeling went through your mind? This is my Rebbe. You felt because you were in Yechidus all alone, Ani Malka B'chadei, you got that feeling, and it stayed with you for a long, long time. The personal connection. Then when you were involved in writing Likutei Sichos, it's another type of personal connection because like a Talmud Torah, you write questions and you write and this. I even tried this is I was already married obviously then, so there were all kinds of shilas in a certain halacha in Hilchas Taras HaMishpacha Hilchas Nida, and the shaila what how Alter Rebbe writes this is got back and forth, and the shaila negay haflogi whatever that. So I was working on the sicha, and I thought here's a gelegenheit. So I wrote up a whole page with a shaila asking the Rebbe on the sicha, and from the answer of that shaila, you would see what the Rebbe holds him negay that question, what to do. I thought I'll be a big chacham, so now like this from the Rebbe, no one got here. It'll be so it's a page for itself. So we gave him the sicha de magia, and this was a page attached to the sicha with a shaila on the sicha, and I was waiting. The Killian and Naim, what's the Rebbe going to answer? Which because it was a very I was in Kail then we were learning these halachas, and it was very emed ala perik. Rebbe gave out the sicha, magia the whole sicha, and he gave out that page also with a pen, made a pencil, a line the whole page, and that's it.
The Rebbe knew what was going on.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
It didn't answer. Not when it just crossed out the whole thing, and that's it.
When you went into Yechidus and you were a Bacher, you asked the Rebbe something like a Shaila?
Depends if you had what to ask. I mean, sometimes you ask whether it's a problem in Ruchnius or
Did
Gashmius.
you?
Well, one of the practical things was when I went in for my 18th birthday. So then you started putting on film when you became 18. Film the Tam. Everyone would ask the Rebbe. No one would do it without asking the Rebbe. So I went in and my settle I wrote, I'm asking the Rebbe if I should start putting Tam's film. And the Rebbe, when he's reading the zettel, after he finished, he said, "B'negeya what the Shreis and again Rebbe Tamstville." Yes, unwantably. I went in Yechidus a few weeks before my birthday because I went to America Shlichus and my birthday is in the middle of the summer. So I would go the last Yechidus before the birthday. So before America Shlichus. So when the Rebbe said I should start, I asked the Rebbe, should I start right away or should I wait till I become 18? So the Rebbe said, Sie besser, was früher mit der Woche, was früher mit der Tag. Because
The
we know
earlier
that
the better.
yeah, they're the better because we know that the Rebbe, even Tovshin Yud, already wrote Tovshin Yud, when you have the Sichas, the stories that the Rebbe told in the middle of Shiva of the Frierdiker Rebbe. So one of the things he said, spoke about the 4 pairs of film. The Frierdiker Rebbe told him to put on 4 pairs of film. And the Rebbe uses a Lashon, a strange Lashon, in the Pnim. The Lashon is, he was afraid. Meile Rashim Rabbi Netam. What's mitafon to Alpidin? Meile Rashim, you have to do Alpidin. What's there to be afraid of? But these, you don't have to do that extra. I was afraid. But the Frierdiker Rebbe told him to do it, and he bought film for him. And there's a big order there. And the words that the Rebbe said that the Ashers that are in the times you have to put on Al Pi Aloche, is the whole order that, how you call it, Rabbi Netam's Al Pi Aloche? Yes, it must be the importance of putting on Rabbi Netam's film. And then he brings for Sharakel. Then the Rebbe writes that it's a pelle that Mispashat Aminik, a fila bein anash, that you don't start putting on right away. In other words, the Rebbe already Tovshin Yud expressed himself that Be'emes everybody should put on Rabbi Netam's film. The Maise, he didn't change the minik till 25
Yeah.
years later. Tovshin Lamed Vov. That's when the Rebbe spoke Purim. He spoke that you start putting, everyone should put on from Bar Mitzvah on. But then it wasn't. So, and when people would ask the Rebbe, they say that sometimes the Rebbe would not say yes. Mostly he did. I know from one Bacha that the Rebbe asked him, how often do you go to the mikveh? So he answered, he didn't go so often, but he's not a stupid Bacher. So he tells the Rebbe, I take upon myself from now on to go every day. So the Rebbe said, I don't mean every day. I mean Monday, Thursday, Friday, and Shabbos. And any other day you have a Sederis. But this was a condition for putting it in the Tam's film.
So it's interesting. Saying I think today people, mikveh every day. It's part of the thing. But you're saying from the Rebbe, it sounds like it's
Well, there's a
Monday,
letter from the
Thursday.
Frierdiker Rebbe the same way.
I mean, it's in
When you have,
the Torah. No, that's one of the 3 achanas. It's
yeah,
fila,
to
right?
Davish, it should be every day. But there's a letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe where he writes that in Lubavitch they didn't go every day. It was the ganze tircha to go to the mikveh. Nowadays, not a tircha. Why shouldn't you go? But in Lubavitch, so the Frierdiker Rebbe writes these words: Monday, Thursday, and Ezayim Shesh Sederis. I'm just wondering where do you get these Sederis? In davening. But how do you know before davening that you can get these Sederis? Maybe learning Chassidus. I don't know exactly the pshat.
Meidani.
Medani.
The Rebbe has a kach Meidani. So
Yeah.
Meidani, you say
MS,
this.
MS, maybe.
Yeah. And other Yechidus, and did you ask the Rebbe Shilas B'negei your Avei Deruchnis?
Sometimes I asked. Sometimes he, on his own, he told me once in Yechidus, so seine reingetunken in Lernen bis über Kopf. And you should have Divrei Torah Balpeh in your mind, in case you'll be in a place where there's no Svarim, you should be able to think the Dvarim Balpeh.
Hmm.
The Lashon was
This was
eingetunken.
without you asking anything?
This was without me, yes. No, it could be it was Behemsh. I didn't ask about this, but Behemsh was something else. It was like an answer. I ate says this to the Reingeton and Lernen bis über Kopf. To know in Yonah Balpeh. That's what he said.
But that was a unique thing that the Rebbe didn't tell other Bachrim.
Right. Like this is a standard he would tell every bocher. Yonim ki meledes, he would say, first of all, Zolton min hogi meledes, and then he would say, Matzloche, in Limad Torah, Limad Nigla, Limad Achsidis, Kima Mitzvahs Behider. To some people, he would add in Avedas Atfila. And some people, I guess it depends on what they wrote, Mistame, Brias Hanachena. Some people he added that. That was the standard. Then everybody else, sometimes he added different specific words that were shaykhs to them. But the whole going into Yechidus was a special experience. Not only the going in, the actual going into Yechidus, but the Achonis. This whole thing of making Achonis to go in Yechidus was something. Any bocher, the less Shidduch bocher, you could tell for a week before Yechidus, you could tell he's going to Yechidus and became more serious and learned better and came to Seder and davened. And it was a different Achonis. Different. You felt it. What you see in the Sichas of the Frierdiker Rebbe, when Gei Achon and Yechidus, You could see by Bochrim. You could see before the Hergish was so special. Later, when there's no Yechidas, the Rebbe said that Farbrengens is Yechidas good, but it's harder to feel that way. When you went in privately, you again, like I said in the beginning, there is things which are true, but the Nefesh Habahamis doesn't relate to it so fast. The Guf. It's true. He said, come to Farbrengen, you have to feel. The Rebbe wrote. Someone wrote to the Rebbe, wants to go into Yechidus Proti. The Rebbe said, Bevada yine kimine ganash bezman achron shenichnosim li Yechidus beisais vadas. So the Rebbe it was like that. And he used to speak about Yechidus Kloli. He wrote it, Yechidus Kloli is even better than regular Yechidus because it's a klal.
With other
Yeah,
people.
other people. But that's true. It's at the Rebbe. It's at us. The feeling is not the same. And again, like the story with the Koshim Samagid, mit goof, you feel goof, you touch it. So you went to Yechidus, you felt different. You felt, and the achonis you made, it was certain ruchnisike feeling. You were in a higher madrege. And even Bochrim were not so epis as a grace chassidim. But this was something that everyone knew. And, that's one of the things that comes to Gimmel Tammuz that you feel. So even before Gimmel Tammuz, sometimes you remind yourself Yechidus, and now you don't have Yechidus. It was such a feeling. I don't want to use the word sad, but a sad feeling.
This was a discussion before Gimmel Tammuz that people would have it.
Yeah,
We don't have
yeah,
Yechidus today.
yeah. There's no Yechidus. And it stopped already in Lamed Vov. I don't know. Whenever years it stopped Yechidus. First stopped only for Bochum, then it stopped later for Giving the Light. Even for Choshever mentioned, I mean, it stopped. Begashmis, it stopped because it couldn't be. The crowd became so big. It's impossible. Begashmis, you should have Yechidus. Who's going to go? I mean, how often? How much? Used to be 3 times a week. Till after Chavhei,
But
it became 2 times a week.
didn't the Rebbe say that it's because people are not using
Yeah,
it
that's the truth.
properly?
Because the Rebbe would not stop because of the Schwerigkeiten. That's for sure. But I'm saying, but not what the Rebbe said. I'm saying, Betzim. I mean, the Rebbe is L'maylam and Asman, but the people are not L'maylam and Asman. So how could all the people go in?
So you're saying already before Gimel Tammuz, there was this Aveda that needed to happen of,
Yeah,
you don't have the same access that people that
right.
the Al
Before.
Chassidim had and
Yeah,
Amalek and
yeah.
it's not the same.
Also, when the Maimorim stopped, people felt that way. And started only Maimer Ken Sicha, then that Gufa stopped later. It was a certain feeling. When the new Nigen stopped, everyone else had like a letdown. It was some kind of time and the heritage that you had was La'elo, La'ela. Different ways. Some things are serious, some things was more freilach. There are certain times of the year Bechal was special. Tekiyas, Hakofes, I mean, these are special. But this is something that continued. But those things did not so continue.
On the other hand, though, the Rebbe, as the years went on, there was so much more. The Farbrengens became much more often,
Right,
much more
right.
longer than the
Yes.
dollars. And in the later
Yeah,
years,
yeah.
Mamish, the Rebbe was a sikh every other day. There's a
Every
sikh in the middle
day,
of the week.
right. So that is true. But I have to tell you, this is maybe Schatoya Animaskir. Every person has his most feeling in the time when he was in 770, learning a 770 by the Rebbe. So by me, when we're talking about the years from Tovshin Chof till the time I left was the Tovshin Lamed Dalet, those are the main years. And whatever happened about it came back later and this and that, there's no question about it. But was geblieben eingekarpt, what's stuck into your heart is those years. And Taka, you hear some Bochim, some Yungalai talk about the years in the Mems and made it the Kenyonim, which is true. But I'm just saying honestly, this Gashmi is the Gezach, that you're there and you were soaked in the Rebbe, you lived with the Rebbe 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a whole year. So that's what stayed. Later on, you did the other thing. You came here, came to Miami with this, with all kinds of the shluchim, shlichus. It's so I'm sure that yeah, the other years that were different than Yonim. Yeah, other Yonim which were much more than before. But we're talking to a person who was more then than later. Later we was more from far. This was mamish close, being mamish part of it.
So for the people today, they have everything, all of the years.
Yeah. In other words, they have everything and everything in a shvera way because you got to work on getting to it. So you could work on everything. All the yonim that happened throughout all the years in different kufas of the Rebbe's Nesiyas, yeah, you could have it all. But on the other hand, you don't have it bepale b'tzad haguf. You have it be'inyan. And to feel that way, you got to be more like a kela to these ruchnisike feelings, especially if you want to understand it. If you want to just have a munah is one thing, but if you want to bring it down in seichel, and people do have, and there are people who have questions. Not just the felt. I feel by uns, Lubavitch, people have questions after Gimmel Tammuz, how is it? And it's mamish, I can tell you, the biggest meifes by the Rebbe is that 30 years after, and you have Chassidish Yidden, Chassidish Bochrim, Bakusher, and know the Sikh, learn the Rebbe Steire. It's mamish a meifes. This is beyond understanding. What did people say, Gimmel Tammuz? They said the worst things. The Babish will fall apart. But you know what? The Rebbe started this whole thing. Okay, I try to explain everything so because he doesn't understand these ruchnistic and yonim in Guf. There's push it. The Rebbe set it up in such a way. It's going to. I'll give a Moshe.
100%.
Okay.
My Rosh Yeshiva, so
Oh, that's nice.
nigla, no?
Okay.
Even though most of the shiurim, every shiur had the sichas in it, so it's
Yes.
also nigla, but it's
And the
all the
Sefer
Rebbe's
I
inyanim.
just gave out a Sefer. I don't know if you know. A Sefer on Mesichta Kedushin. Nigla, pure Nigla.
Not in the
Not
Haas.
Shady Yeshiva Gedolah. That no,
Yeah.
taking it's a lot of them taken from there. A Sefer Imre Leib, it's called Imre Leib because my name is Leib, so it's Imre Leib. And the Rosh Tevas of Imre Leib is the gematria. I mean, of my name and my father's name.
Okay.
So it worked out anyway. So we got to talk in English. There is everything has looked at I mean, so I want to just say in Nigle, there's a concept of Eshe Mishum Chitze. That means when you start a fire, just like when you shoot an arrow, you could find how come I'm chayiv? I hurt the guy over there. I didn't do anything to him. I pushed the trigger here. I shot the arrow here. In my reshus, I could do what I want. From that second, whatever happens there, it's as if you did it. Same thing by Aish. If someone starts a fire, one of the Dalit obvious Nizikin is Aish. If you start a fire someplace and the fire goes on for 3 days and burns down someone's house, you are responsible to pay. Why are you responsible to pay? Because it's all on your account. So we have the famous Nemuka Yosef. Nemuka Yosef asked the kasha, based on this, how could you light candles Friday? If everything that happens by a fire, it goes on, that it's happening later, and you're doing it, so Shabbos it's burning, and you're
It's
lighting
Chil
a fire.
Shabbos.
Till Shabbos. So the Nemuka Yosef answers is fakert pshat. It's not the pshat that as it's doing, you're doing it. Whatever is done later is kolel in the beginning. So when you light the fire, it's kolel. Everything is going to be later. That's why you're chayiv. So if he said, if the Rebbe started what he did, and in such a way that he started the ball rolling in such a way that it continues by itself, it's like the guy who starts the fire. I'm just wondering in Aloch, I didn't that if a person starts a fire and dies, and the fire continues, is the achrayas on him? In other words, is his estate chayiv to pay? Because by fire, whatever's happening later is included in your fire. So you made a fire that happens 3 days after the guy passed away. So according to the Mukha Yosef, it's a should be chayiv. So I'm saying by the Rebbe, I feel in a balabatish way, whatever we're doing now is not more machadash chedushim. It's all included in what the Rebbe put into us, in the Rebbe's Torah, in the Rebbe's Anhoge. He put in all the inyanim that happen now is all a hemshech to what he did. It's like the Rebbe started the fire, and the fire is continuing. So I feel it from a balabatish perspective. Balabatish. This has nothing to do with deep inyanim chassidus. It's all the Rebbe. So the Rebbe is doing it now. It's all what he did then till Gimmel Tammuz is he responsible for what he's doing now. Philip Balabatish. So it's Afil and Nigla. So the Mela, this is Hasbora to because people do wonder how do we say the Rebbe after we don't see the Rebbe, but still that's the din. The din is that if you started doing people actually as these shilas mainly shluchim, not shluchim, but in the light, but shluchim bochim yeshiva. That their first years, the Rebbe would choose which bochim should go. Who chooses now? On the whole, decide. So it's not the Rebbe shlichus. The answer is it's al derech lach shliach is a shliach. But besides that, the Rebbe started this whole motion and this whole movement of how to do it, and it's all following what he did. So it's all on his head. So he's the Mashaleach still. So that's what we think. But getting back to Gimmel Tammuz, that's what something has to go through people's mind. It's not just Aces Perches. When we say Aces, just Aces, no, the Rebbe still here. You can say what you want. You gotta. So if you mean Tanemes, so there's the mile of the Tmime Shebedover, but the Chabad Shebedover that needs. So going
Yeah,
back, then you have to know what the
you
Rebbe
see,
is. You have to know all these things.
I mean, you see, like everything that's happening today that Lubavitch is accomplishing. There's so many inyanim that it was barely done before Gimel Tammuz. I actually remember I heard you speak once. It was a year of Hakel, a few years. I don't know this cycle, the last cycle. I think you said that everyone's koching in Hakel. I don't remember people being so into it before Gimel Tammuz. And now people are into it more. So the Rebbe was introducing all these concepts, and at a rapid pace. The Rebbe is introducing multiple of the 10 of time. A few of them were done at one shot. The Rebbe is doing multiple things, and then we're still unpacking it right now.
But you used a good word. The Rebbe packed it in, and we're unpacking it. So it's all the Rebbe's doing. I feel practically speaking, it's all the Rebbe's. No new things. All these new things are included. Elamai, it becomes more begilu, it becomes more mudgish, more stressed. But it's all because of the Rebbe. That's all his.
You,
That's his
you,
credit, and that's his
you
doing.
saying Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud, the Rebbe started off that we're gonna the Rashvi is gonna make a dirbe tachtenim. I'm saying there's that's a nuclear bomb, included in there. I'm saying that this is infinite to accomplish to bring Mashiach. I'm saying this is everything. I'm saying there's so much in there.
By the way, when you're mentioning the Rebbe said after you Shvat, so I heard from somebody a good word that in the first word of the Rebbe's first Maimer is hinted Chumash, Tilim, Tanya, and Rambam. Beis is the first letter of Chumash, Reishis. Aleph is the first letter of Tilim, Asher Yish. Bossi,
Tough.
no, it says Aleph and Tov is Tanya, and the Yud is Yisayda from the Chachas from Rambam. So the Rebbe already put down, so it's all included that way. But it's even
The
more than we know. It says, and the Rebbe is Masbir when it says whatever the Talmud all the years later are going to say came all was included in Moshe Rabbeinu. So Rabbi is Masbir that all the Chidushim they're included in Moshe Rabbeinu's Torah. In the Torah we have, but nevertheless as Torah Chadosho, that means Chidush Torah, but it's included Behelim. But I'm saying now is more than that. It's more Begillah, included more Begillah. You could push it, see that the Rebbe said this, the Rebbe said that. Now we're utilizing what the Rebbe said, even though then it was not utilized so much. So it's mamish the Rebbe doing it. This is all like Neisef of the Ruchdisdike understanding of what it means that the Rebbe is still with us and the Rebbe is doing. That's deeper truth. But I'm saying even for Pasha the people that don't take it, even for somebody who's not a chassid that doesn't, you could explain it to him. But we got to work on it. That's one thing. You got to work. Nothing happens by itself.
there's also, besides working on the connection to the Rebbe, there's also another crucial part of it that Basha have to fulfill the Rebbe's hayros. I'm saying we have to be the Rebbe's shluchim and
Right.
to do this. Like
Yeah, we can't just stress that the Rebbe is here and stress his kashrus. He's mekusher. His kashrus. Like there's a losh in the Friedrich Rebbe quoted it also years later. Chsidimonu ubameh kashrus. This connects to the famous joke of this rabbi. Everyone knows this joke that the rabbi came in, a new rabbi in the shul. So the first Shabbos he was speaking about the mitzvah of Shabbos. After Shabbos, the president comes to him and says, "This is not for these people. Don't talk about." Okay, next Shabbos he spoke about kashrus. After that, he spoke about film. Finally, he tells the president, "So what should I talk about? What? Talk about Yiddishkeit." Exact same thing. Talk about what? Start talking about the Mdaflen and the Ram State, the Mdaflen and Torah Bechlal. This all part of his. Talk about his kashrus. That's his kashrus. If you do it, that's just got to talk about. You got to talk. You got to talk about the Nakuda Klolis also. You got to be masbid that also. I said before, you're going to know. Tell somebody, the Rebbe on the Neshama Klo. What is the meaning of the Neshama Klo? How do you explain it? So you got to go into that. I don't think now is the time for this. Maybe I don't think I should go into it, unless you think it is, and I would give some explanation. But I doubt that people. It's not. This that you have to learn Chassidus and whatever.
Okay. So we have the mandate. We have we have the facts. We have the mandate. Was man darf tun, what needs to be done. And one of the inyanim that a chassid does on Gimmel Tammuz in order is strengthen the hiskashras, and that's an aveda in and of itself. But then obviously it has to lead to hamaisa hu ikir, to actually fulfill the Rebbe's heroes, fulfill the Rebbe's wishes, and be memale the shlichus that the Rebbe gave him Basel Laganik to make a dirbe tachtenim. Yeah.
It's easier said than done, but it's not leiba shemayim. It's, in other words, it's not impossible. It's possible, and we got to do it. And there are so many people who do it. That's the best thing. When, like, I remember I went to Rabbi Pliski when he moved from Australia to New York. He said, "Real see the Sharid." So the Rebbe told him to bring a lot with the Bochrim. So I heard from him himself. He said he asked the Rebbe and Yechidus, "What should he bring about?" And the Rebbe said, "Tell stories, not of Rabbeim. Tell stories of Chassidim." Why? Because if you tell about the Rebbe did this great thing. That doesn't affect me. How about it? The Rebbe could do it. The Rebbe tell stories of Chassidim. That Chassidim were like me and you, and they could do it. They did it. Oh, that helps. I'm saying here also. You see so many Yidden Taka, so many Chassidim with Taka do it, with liegen in the Rebbe's Torah, liegen in Meftzayim, two the things that the Rebbe says. And it's possible. And even though it's the Shnas Tov Shin Pei Hey already, and I'll say better, it's the year 2025. Let's use the English calendar. That shows even more how low it is. And nevertheless, there are people, and it's in proportion to, it's a lot. Hagam, there are still people who are schwach in these inyonim, but you know how much there is that are involved in all the right things and do what the Rebbe wants. Look around. So you got to be one of those. That's what you have to think about Gimmel Tammuz. Everyone does think not about the trachten wegen sich. If I'm holding at it, the story that Rebbe told with Michal der Alter, famous story that everyone knows the story, but this Dovshin Chav Hey, huge father, the Rebbe told a story and then mentioned a name who wrote him the story. Harav Perlov wrote him a story in Kutis Purim because it wasn't printed yet. He sent the Rebbe the Gelis, we call it, of the Sefer, and the Rebbe repeated what he wrote. He wrote that what he heard by Farbrengens from Michal der Alter. Michal der Alter was a person who was Zavas Yisrael. He was a person that he was a mashpi in Lubavitch, and when he got older and he couldn't do the job, so they wanted to fire him. The Rebbe Rashab said, "Don't fire. Just him being in yeshiva, people should see his tzir is enough worth the money." But so he told over a moshel. There was once a yeshiva. A yeshiva is a small village. In a small village, the people were there. Mamish didn't know anything. Peasants, so it was one guy they hired to be a malama to the children. He was the gan salam. He was the whole. They couldn't even read Hebrew. So if anybody got a letter that was written in Lashon Kodesh or in Yiddish, they would ask him to read it. So once one of these guys got a letter, he couldn't read it. He went to the Malamed and he's reading it. And in the letter, it said that this guy's father, who gave him the letter, passed away. So the guy fainted. So the Beholder Alter asked, why did he faint? He couldn't see what it says in the letter. He heard it, Kleshen. He heard it from the guy. The guy who read it saw the letter himself. Why didn't he faint? Oh, that's his Zain Tate. And the Rebbe for months used to mention this in the Farbrengens. Wie mit Gerät, as darf sein mein Tate. So that's what we have to. That's what Gimmel Tammuz darf trachten as mein Tate. It meant mir. What I'm saying now is not to anybody. I'm trying to convince myself. That's the truth. If this is considered like a Farbrengen, let's consider that. What's a Farbrengen? Farbrengen, ich sage Machsidim, wie hat einer Chutzpah to sit down and tell people was man darf tun? Nein, das retten zu sich. So what darfst du haben? They sit home and red zu sich. Speak to yourself. If a guy speaks to himself at home, they'll take him to Mishagoyim house. They'll put him in the crazy house. So you got to have people listening, but it's yourself. I'm talking to Anion. Darf trachten, das meint man mir, es ist mein Tate, and it's mein Tate. That's serious. And that's what has to be before Gimmel Tammuz. And there has to be hachon. It's not enough to be on Gimmel Tammuz. It has to be beforehand. You have to prepare yourself. Hachonas mitzvah is very, very important. Sometimes says in Chassidus, a hachona to a mitzvah has more influence, more effect than the mitzvah itself. And if the time is not limited, I could just say where I felt it once. I told this over many times, but I'll say it again. It was 1 year when I came from Miami and the Rebbe was giving lekach in Chol Hamoed Sukkos. I was sitting in my brother's house. My brother Sholmber was a son-in-law of Rabbi Mindel, Nisa Mindel, and Rabbi Nisa Mindel was there. So I sat in the house talking to him. It was schmack to talk, to hear. Then I told him I have to leave. I looked at my watch. I want to get in line to get lekach. So he says to me, "Don't worry, I'm also getting lekach tonight. I won't have to stand in line. You come with me and we'll walk in." I stayed. We stayed. Finally, it's time to go. So we came to some 70. It was a long, long line down Eastern Park, but he went straight to the front door, knocked on the door, and he asked, "Who is this?" So I said, "This is Rabbi Mindel." Oh, they opened the door right in front where the Rebbe was standing. I don't know why, but he was giving lekach inside. Usually sukkahs he gave at the sukkah. I don't know. He was inside. So he walks in. I walk in with him because we're together. We walk in straight to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe gave lekach, and we walked away. And as we walked away, I think to myself, "What just happened?" If you stand in line for an hour and you're waiting and you're anticipating and you're getting ready, then you got to the Rebbe. Oh, finally, I got this. I didn't prepare. I didn't go. I got a piece of cake. So I thought to myself, no, you got to stand in line. I'm saying, because I then understood the word that steht in Chassidus, that achonah to a mitzvah. The mitzvah itself is more important than the achonah. If you imagine a person makes achonah, doesn't do the mitzvah, it's going to shver. But when you do both, the achonah has more influence on the person. So before Gimmel Tammuz, you also have to think. Otherwise, Gimmel Tammuz comes, Gimmel Tammuz goes, and see noch hatog in the calendar, and it's not like that. So that's what you have to think.
Okay. Thank you
Yeah,
very much, Rabbi Shapiro. And we should do the hachanas, and not only hachanas, but also the days afterwards has to be
yeah, versteht.
mushpa from the.
That's the whole kavanah. Just
Yeah.
like Pesach, besogt nicht gechasal to the Pesach, while Pesach endigt sich nicht, the Rebbe said. That doesn't finish. Whatever Gimel Tammuz has to be hashpah later. But if you make the achlotas on the day, it has more chance that you'll fulfill it. You'll be mekayim.
Okay. Shaker, Rabbi Shapiro. Tzlach
That's
Rabba.
the boss. That's loch Rabbe. Wir sollen sicher sein, noch sein mit dem Rebbe, bekoriv mamish.
Amen. Amen.